against the void, grasp the twisted threads of truth, laughing in the face of chaos, burning knowledge like a ruthless youth. Complex thoughts dance in the fire, cynics grin with a wisecrack's ire, fighting shadows with sharpened wits, baring teeth in a world unfair. They're the one with biting charm, heart and brain a lethal arm, stand unshaken, minds collide, laughing with the storm inside. They're the one with biting charm, heart and brain a lethal arm, stand unshaken, minds collide, laughing with the storm inside. Faces enemies with a yes, every laugh a cunning test, carving paths through blackened skies, inside clear and bloodshot eyes. In the maze of thoughts ensnare, every joke a blade prepared, cuts through lies with humor's flair, unseen wisdom few can bear.
Folks, welcome to the show. Just got off Laid Back Law with Eric Hunley and the rest of the panel. I had a great time. Great time. And now, something I have been waiting to do for quite some days. What has been revealed? Now, when Judge Gull can't stall it anymore, the floodgates are being opened in the Delphi case. Again, the Delphi trial, the Richard Allen trial. Now, I need to start calling it the Rick Allen trial, because the Delphi case to me is two cases. It is both the murders of Abby and Libby and the Flora 4. If you don't know about the Flora 4, it is 4 young girls died in an arson in late 2016, just months before Abby and Libby. And that is still unsolved. I've been checking through the Flora 4 case, all the paperwork. For me, it is absolutely mind-boggling that there isn't an arrest, a trial, and a conviction already with the papers I've seen so far. But this is about Richard Allen, the Delphi trial against him, and the murders of Abby and Libby. And we got a whole, Richard Allen's defense attorneys, hello, Mr. Jingles. Richard Allen's defense attorneys filed this verified motion to correct errors. And what a bombshell. The absolute corruption from the prosecution and Judge Gull that is revealed in this verified motion to correct errors. And besides that, we have everything else. Things are finally being revealed to us. Finally. And I'm appalled. I'm mad. I'm angry that this was withheld from the jury. A lot of things was withheld even from the defense. And so, yeah. I know you haven't, there's no super chats or anything yet, but I'm having myself a vodka tonic. This is, yeah. So if you, yes, Mr. Jingles. Hello, Mr. Jingles. Hello. Good you're here. You can calm me down, or you can wind me up even more. I don't know yet. Only 5 minutes in here. I know. Let's do one of these things if you want. Dun dun dun. Let's see here. Can I will start a goal. So you can help me restock the alcohol I'm probably going to drink today. 10 super chats, teal or higher, which is $5. I will set it for an hour, and it's a shot of whiskey or the equivalent of it. There, start goal. Hey, it worked. So, okay. Today, let's start with reading the verified motion to correct errors, and then we will go into more things that I also believe is you know me. I've been following this case for almost longer than the YSL case, and there are things that I'm finding out now that I had no idea was out there. No idea. That is starting to get revealed. The floodgates. Please, Mr. Jingles, do not boop with claws. You know you can boop without claws. I know you can boop without claws. You do it all the time, except when I'm here. Then it's hello, Mr. Ow. Yeah. Everybody, this is Mr. Jingles. He is the actual owner of this channel. He is the one because he needs pets and snacks and stuff. And why is all the gin? Oh no, the gin isn't gone. Let's see here. Oh, well, there's some gin left. But it's the whiskey or the equivalent of it. Oh, thank you, Brandon. Brandon is getting us going. Hello, let's go, Brandon. Thank you. Gin. Where's all the gin gone? I think you just misspelled it. And snacks for £5. That's like $20. Here's the thing. I don't think the goal actually says it has to be a super chat, not a super sticker. But I will count it anyways. So it's fine. But while we wait, I'm having a vodka tonic with a funny straw. But all right. Let's start with, and thank you, Snacks. Thank you. I will pin that. For you who don't, by the way, for you who don't know, I'm traveling to the United States again in September. I'm going to Utah and Florida. And whatever I get through my PayPal, it's going directly to that. I will at least once a month tell you, I will show you. Where it's headed. Where in Florida? Miami. Teresa Leemaster, $5. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, let's go before this gets out of hand. Defendant Richard Allen, verified motion to correct errors. Oh, hold on. I have to set that up there. Okay. Comes now. The defendant Richard Allen by counsel and files its verified motion to correct errors. For the reasons that follow, the court should either vacate Mr. Allen's convictions or set the matter set out below for hearing. Bombshell number 1. In violation of 6th and 14th Amendment, Mr. Allen was deprived of counsel at the safekeeping proceeding, November 3rd, 2022. That proceeding was a critical stage at which Mr. Allen was entitled to be represented by counsel. The court must presume Mr. Allen was prejudiced by being unrepresented during that proceeding. Yes, folks, that safekeeping proceeding that put Mr. Allen in prison instead of jail, Mr. Allen had an attorney. And they held that proceeding without his attorney. That, I didn't know that. I did not know that. That for me is, I mean, for me, personally, for me, that means everything happening after this is results of the rotten fruit kind of thing. If Carson Pratt, this was addressed during the trial, I think this was addressed outside of the jury's presence. Now when you say it, yeah. Transfers. This is the transfers for personal safety or safety of others. This was when the original judge. This was the only thing he did, and then he retired because he felt threatened. Where does the gin fund go? Jingles? Yeah, yeah, I presume so. And Mr. G. This will be a stream with me drinking and saying ow, because Mr. Jingles is doing the boop with claws. Transfers for blah blah blah, alleging that an inmate in a county jail awaiting trial is in danger of serious bodily harm or death or represents a substantial threat to the safety of others. The court shall determine whether the inmate is in imminent danger, blah 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 blah. Yeah. I don't care. Whatever they claim. He had an attorney. The prosecution hid this from his attorney. It should be thrown out by this reason alone. By this reason alone, in my opinion. Mr. Allen was interrogated and arrested on October 26 and booked into the Carroll County Jail under a pseudonym. The next day, Mr. Allen's wife hired attorney Brett Gibson to represent Mr. Allen. In the evening of October 27th, Mr. Gibson sent a letter by email to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and to Nicholas McLeland, the Carroll County prosecutor. What emerges from defendant's exhibit is the following. Sheriff Lathamby confirmed receipt of Mr. Gibson's letter by telephone in the evening of the October 27th. Also on October 27th, over the telephone, someone at the Carroll County Jail told Mr. Gibson that Mr. Allen was not an inmate. Already there. See? The absolute fustercluck. Absolute fustercluck. It is this is insanity. Insanity, I say. Did I show this? I don't know. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you to Ignoring My Vices. Where does the gene fund go? Yeah, to Mr. Jingles. Nailing maps to the wall since 1969. Thank you. Did someone say map? I don't know. And thank you, Laura, for becoming a member. Welcome to the show. This is a commentary channel. I will interrupt with, I'm just being sidetracked. It is squirrel. Yeah, you know the bit. But again, look at this absolute fustercluck that is going on here. And this is the day of the arrest and the day after. Mr. Gibson then contacted Mr. McLeland by email, after which Mr. McLeland called Mr. Gibson on his cell phone. Again, this removes a paper trail, except that Mr. Gibson was smart enough to send the emails. Now, already here, Mr. McLeland, just by calling and not email back, tells me he was desperate in not having a paper trail. Oh, look at that. Thank you so much. When you come at the king, you best not miss. Test! Thank you for your $5 super chat. Thank you so much. We are heading in storm steps towards the goal. You guys are getting me. Oh, you are going to get me real drunk here. This will be a stream for the ages. And stacks, I can type now. Yay! Thank you. Mr. Gibson went to the Carroll County Jail when someone from the sheriff's office took Mr. Gibson to a meeting room. It appeared to Mr. Gibson the regular jail staff did not know Mr. Allen was there. Still on the evening of October 27th, Mr. Gibson finally met with Mr. Allen and advised him not to discuss his case over the telephone because calls would certainly be recorded. At about 10 p.m., Mr. Gibson called Mrs. Allen to say he would not be able to get Mr. Allen out of jail because he was going to be charged with 2 counts of murder the next day. On October 28th, without Mr. Gibson present, even though Mr. McLeland and Sheriff Lazenby both knew Mr. Allen was represented, Mr. Allen was charged with 2 counts of murder and Judge Diener held Mr. Allen's initial hearing. Again! You don't do this in the United States of America. If you are being represented, he has to be there. If he's not there, the hearing is invalid, in my opinion. Hey, Dave is here. That's a gin. GD is in control of your math from now on. Yeah, my math will not math. Shortly after his initial hearing, Mr. Allen was whisked away from the Carroll County Jail to White County Jail without a safekeeping order authorizing the transfer. So, without telling his attorney, they had a hearing. And then they moved him in a clear attempt to make sure that Mr. Allen didn't get to see his lawyer. On November 1st, a letter from Mr. Allen was mailed to the White County Jail from the White County Jail to Carroll Circuit Court. In that letter, Mr. Allen requested that the court appoint counsel for him. Nothing in the letter indicated he was not already represented. Yeah, you can have representation. You can discover you can't afford it. You know you can't afford it, so now you ask for an appointed counsel. For some reason, although it had sufficient postage and was correctly addressed to the Carroll County Circuit Court, Mr. Allen's letter requesting the appointment of counsel was returned to White County Jail. It was then remade from there as show filed in this court on November 9th, 2022. That was an error. Under the mailbox rule, as a matter of law, Mr. Allen's letter was considered filed with the court as of November 1st. As a matter of law. It's not Dave? No, oh, it's not Dave. Dave has something else on his. Oh. This. The prison mailbox rule, recognized by the United States Supreme Court, provides that pro se filings from an incarcerated litigant are considered filed at the time they are delivered to prison authorities for forwarding to the court. Done. Over and done. Mr. Allen is represented, and now he's asking for somebody appointed to him to then take over for the person immediately representing him. The safekeeping proceeding was plainly illegal from start to finish. Yeah. First, Sheriff Lazenby transferred Mr. Allen to White County Jail with no safekeeping order in place. Next, Lazenby had no standing to make the safekeeping request on November 3rd, due to the fact that Mr. Allen had been illegally transferred to the White County Jail. Once Mr. Allen was in White County Jail, the White County Sheriff was, quote unquote, the sheriff statutorily authorized to make a safekeeping request under Indiana Code. Yeah, but this is Carroll County, where laws don't matter, where they don't care. They really, really don't care in Carroll County about laws. They are basically having a mix of communist and Sharia law applied in that county, in my opinion. Because Sheriff Lazenby had no standing to make the safekeeping request, Judge Diener had no jurisdiction to consider it. Second, Mr. Allen had the right to have a judge other than Judge Diener decide whether to issue a safekeeping order at Lazenby's request. That is because Judge Diener had engaged in ex parte communications with Lazenby, helping Lazenby draft his safekeeping request. You all know this from the YSL trial. Ex parte meetings are always considered prejudicial and shall only be an extremely limited. But Judge Diener didn't care. So an illegal ex parte meeting. Have we heard that before? Yeah, we have. Rule 310 prohibits judges from drafting or reviewing documents except for family members. Judge Diener also violated Rule 2.9 of the code by engaging in substantive ex parte communication with Lazenby, which helping Lazenby draft the safekeeping ordinance certainly were. Having violated both Rules 310 and 2.9, Judge Diener was obligated under Rule 211 of the code to recuse himself and request appointment of a special judge before he issued the safekeeping order, not after, which is what he did on November 3rd. Yeah, so he did all of this illegal stuff, and then he decided to recuse himself, and now he's in retirement ever since. Good on you, Judge Diener, going to retirement with all that retirement funds and everything, patting yourself on the shoulder. You're a disgrace, Judge Diener. Absolute disgrace. Third, Sheriff Lazenby's November 3rd request by the Sheriff of Carroll County, Indiana, blah, 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 was not served on anyone. There is no certificate of service attached. Indiana Code that requires a safekeeping request to be made by motion. Indiana trial rules this require that Sheriff Lazenby's motion for safekeeping order be served on the parties. Because Sheriff Lazenby knew that Mr. Gibson was representing Mr. Allen, he was required to serve Mr. Gibson with his motion for safekeeping order. Even if he claims Mr. Gibson was not representing Mr. Allen at the time, Sheriff Lazenby was required to then serve Mr. Allen personally. Fourth, Sheriff Lazenby's safekeeping request was not verified. I mean, how many laws and rules can you break at once? Ask Sheriff Lazenby and Judge Diener, because we are up to a dozen violations. Here, we are on page 6. There was therefore literally no evidence before Judge Diener from which he could make any factual finding required by Indiana Code that would authorize a safekeeping order. Fifth, because a factual finding was required to authorize the safekeeping order, a hearing with notice to the parties on Sheriff Lazenby's safekeeping request was required. And we just reached the goal. It's like my grandmother used to say, may she rest in peace. Sometimes you eat the bar, and well, sometimes the gin, it eats you. All right, where's my gin? We hit the goal! Yay! Oh. And we will see how long it's and beaver shot glass. Oh. 10 Quarry London Dry Gin. Dun, dun, dun. 43%. Yep, that'll do the trick. Where were we? Yeah. 6. And perhaps most importantly, after all of this, a dozen violations of Indiana law, this is the most important. Mr. Allen had an absolute right to refuse being transferred to the custody of the department. Sheriff Lazenby's safekeeping request alleged no statutorily authorized basis for a safekeeping order other than a concern for Mr. Allen's personal safety. If the reason for a safekeeping transfer is only a defendant's personal safety, a defendant may refuse the transfer. And they ignore that as well. Mr. Allen had no opportunity to exercise his right to refuse the transfer to the Indiana Department of Corrections custody or to make any of the objections set out above to the entire course of the proceeding. That is for a quite simple reason. Mr. Allen, either personally or through his lawyer, Mr. Gibson, had no notice of the legal skullduggery that would land him in solitary confinement at the Westville Control Unit, Wabash Valley Correctional Facility, and Cass County Jail for 23 months pending trial. Because Mr. Allen had no notice of what was afoot, neither he nor his lawyer could make any arguments that would have necessarily prevented Mr. Allen's transfer. Finally, Mr. Allen's own absence from the safekeeping proceeding should be treated no differently from the absence of a lawyer to represent him. Yeah, they held this safekeeping hearing without Mr. Allen and without his attorney. Okay, if you don't have sound, refresh screen. Oh, I'm already a bad speller. Oh, this will be excellent. Yeah. One consequence of this should be that the Sixth Amendment and Article 1 of the Indiana Constitution should apply when a pro se litigant is excluded from a proceeding at which he or she has the right to be present and participate in. It is a violation of the Sixth Amendment to completely deprive a defendant of counsel at any critical stage of a criminal prosecution. The safekeeping proceeding, such as it was a critical stage at which Mr. Allen had a Sixth Amendment right to have his lawyer interpose all the objections to the November 3rd safekeeping order set out above. Because Mr. Allen was entirely and unconstitutionally deprived of counsel at the safekeeping proceeding, the court must presume Mr. Allen was prejudiced by that deprivation of counsel. Oh, we need a new goal. Start another goal. Yeah. There we go. Alternatively, of the Indiana Constitution provides in part, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall, not may, shall have the right to be heard by himself and counsel. Section this affords citizens ever greater protection than its federal counterpart. Not only does 13A guarantee a criminal defendant the right to counsel at any critical stage of the prosecution, but, quote, the rights afforded under Section 13 also attach prior to the filings of formal charges against the defendant. Oh, here's a footnote. The court need not speculate whether safekeeping proceedings have serious consequences for an accused. In addition to being moved hours away from his lawyers for over 23 months, Mr. Allen was unconstitutionally kept in solitary confinement in an Indiana Department of Corrections prison and was shackled, leashed, and hooded and deprived of human contact. As a consequence of that torture, Mr. Allen became psychotic. Short of his death, it is hard to imagine more serious consequences for Mr. Allen flowing from the November 3rd safekeeping proceeding. And for you jackasses out there that says, oh, this is a prison, jail, it's not a vacation, I have an open challenge. You sign my waiver where you allow me to put you through this for a week. And we'll see what I can make you confess to. Okay? Haldol, people screaming at you. Guards that hates you. Will you sign that waiver? Unless no, then shut the fuck up. No, don't. Please continue to prove to the world that you are a bloodthirsty sociopath who likes to know about torture. Or sign that waiver. Try to prove me wrong. Try to make it a challenge. It's not like I have military training from the Cold War days. Let's get back to this. Mr. Allen was not afforded either the right to be heard by counsel or by himself at the safekeeping proceeding. This should be partially disturbing because had he been given the opportunity to do so, Mr. Absent had an absolute personal right to refuse the transfer to the department's custody. In either case, accordingly, the court should vacate Mr. Allen's convictions or set this motion for a hearing. Who here believes Judge Gull wants a hearing about this? She will deny it. I'm quite sure of it. I'm quite sure. And thank you, Brandon. Been there, don't that. I rather hand out with the starving jingles. Yep. And then here, in violation of due process clause of 14th Amendment and its progeny, sorry, the state presented the testimony of Brad Weber. That Mr. Weber, yeah, this is next part that they want in as a correction of error. Oh, this is fun. This is fun. Oh, I'm going to have words about Mr. Brad Weber. Then Mr. Weber arrived home in his white van about 2:30 p.m. on February 13, 2017, either knowing that the testimony was false before it was elicited or failing to correct it once it had been elicited. Folks, prior to this Brad Weber thing, I said that Brad Weber was either lying in 2017 or he was lying in the trial. As it turns out, he was lying both times. A lying liar who lies. And remember, according to that one juror interview, this van was what got Richard Allen convicted. And as it turns out, this van was a lie. Complete lie from start to finish. We will get to it more in detail. A conviction obtained through use of false evidence known to be such by representatives of the state must fall under the 14th Amendment. The same result obtains when the state, although not soliciting false evidence, allows it to go uncorrected when it happens. At trial, the undisputed evidence was that LG's Libby cellular telephone stopped moving at 2:18 p.m. for 7 minutes until 2:25 p.m. It then started moving again and stopped moving permanently at 2:32 p.m. In closing argument, Mr. McLeland called it a hard fact that LG's phone stopped moving at 2:32 p.m. Oh. You forgot to add those super stickers to your gym tab, and they were in Kingston. What? Oh yeah. Okay. We are. You see, we are 2 towards the goal. We are actually 4 towards the goal with the super stickers. Thank you for reminding me, Brandon. Thank you. And thank you again for your super chat. The state introduced an alleged confession by Mr. Allen by Dr. Monica Walla, a psychologist. You all know she's been fired since because misconduct. Yeah, that's the test. I remind you, the testimony of Dr. Monica Walla. She was fired for misconduct. And besides, and there is so much more about Dr. Walla. I have to make a separate video of sorts just with the absolute unethical behavior of this Dr. Walla. Yeah, because there's too much to fit, because I need to get through this. But let's just say, okay, let's say this. In my personal opinion, everything in in Richard Allen's confessions was fed to him by Dr. Walla. That is my opinion, and I will stick to it. If she wants to sue me, go right ahead. I would love to get to Discovery, to get all your phones, all your computers, all your messaging. I would love for that to be public. You absolute twat. Psychologist contracted by the Indiana Department of Corrections to treat inmates at Westville Correctional Facility. In this alleged confession, Dr. Wallace, she shredded her notes. Cunt. If you don't like curse words, this is not the stream for you. There will be words. And now you all have provided the funding for me to ignore the fact it will probably be demonetized. In this alleged confession, Dr. Wallace stated Mr. Allen said he had abducted LG and Libby and Abby on the south side of the Modern High Bridge and forced them down the hill on the south side of Deer Creek. Dr. Wallace said Mr. Allen said that he was on the south side of Deer Creek and was planning on essaying them when he was interrupted by a van. Dr. Wallace said Mr. Allen said he became scared when he saw the van and crossed Deer Creek from south to north from the Weber property to Ron Logan's property, taking Libby and Abby with him. The state also introduced the testimony of Brad Weber, the fucktwat, that he left work on the Subaru factory in Lafayette, Indiana at 2:02 p.m. and arrived home in his white cargo van at about 2:30 p.m. Yeah. The state argued Mr. Weber's arrival home in his van was what interrupted Mr. Allen, causing him to take Libby and Abby across Deer Creek to end them on Ron Logan's property. The arrival of Mr. Weber's van at about 2:30 was, quote-unquote, a detail only the killer would know, said the state. But the problem is that the state also contended that Libby and Abby died near in time to 2:32 p.m. when Apple Health data from Libby's phone showed that the phone stopped moving. If the arrival of Mr. Weber in his van interrupted Mr. Allen, forcing him across the creek, Mr. Weber would have had to arrive near his parents' house at the end of the private drive before 2:32 p.m. Then, according to the state, the phone stopped moving and was located on the north side of Deer Creek. In fact, Mr. Weber could not have arrived anywhere on the private drive before 2:44:54, more or less 2:45. His arrival at about 2:30 could not have been a detail only the killer would know, because it did not happen. Never happened. Mr. Allen was convicted on a deliberate lie by Mr. Weber. The state knew, or should have known, as much as the state either elicited Mr. Weber's testimony about the time he arrived home, knowing it was false ahead of time, or failed to correct that testimony once it had been elicited. Defendant's Exhibit 3A, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman in Defendant's Exhibit 3, is a video recording made on February 13th, 2017 by a security camera that was in the house at this address. The video recording was provided to the defense by the state and has therefore been in the state's possession, meaning the state knew Weber was lying. Sorry for yelling. I'm angry. Rachel says, isn't that prosecutorial misconduct? Yes, it is. I absolutely agree. Blah, 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 blah. Based on the date and timestamps on the video, it appears that the security camera was set to record date and time information as part of the recording. The time of the security camera was set 12 hours behind, such as 12 a.m. is really 12 p.m. on the same day. This is apparent due to the daylight and moonlight on the video and the associated timestamps. The security camera had a wide-angle lens that captured video of traffic on that road at the beginning of the private drive to the Weber property. According to the time and date stamps on the security camera recording, shows a white vehicle going north, entering the frame at approximately 2:44:33 p.m. on February 13th. Also shows a white vehicle continuing into the private drive on the Weber property at approximately 2:44:54. It's viewable on YouTube at the following address. Oh, look at that. Elena Stansby for 10 pounds. Wow, that's thank you. The voice matching evidence was the biggest load of rubbish as well. Yeah. Oh, I've been talking about that on several streams. That whoever cop it was, I don't remember his name, even was allowed to say, I recognize this as Richard Allen's voice. I say that cop lied, and he knew he lied. Why do I say that? Because the voice on the recording is enhanced, meaning background noise gone. Certain things enhanced to make it more clear, meaning it wasn't the actual voice. So if you claim you recognize that voice, it's an altered voice. Altered. So anyone claiming recognizing anything from that recorded voice, enhanced voice, you're either a moron, stupid, or you know you're lying. In my opinion, I have to add that. No, I don't have to. I really don't, but I do it anyway. Exhibit is a video file that contains 3 Zoom clips from the video recording at this. And yeah, that video shows clearly Mr. Weber was lying through his tooth. I assume he only has a few teeth. because I don't know why. I'm just assuming. There are 3 stills, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, everything about, yeah. Here it is, the picture. In the video, you see it passing by. A full, at least 13 minutes after Mr. Weber said he was there. Completely ruining the prosecution's timeline. Completely. Other video files produced by the security camera provide the defense in discovery and covering the time from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on February 13th do not show any other van driving north. So only one vehicle resembling a white van between 2 and 4 p.m. So all of that is about the van and the recording, and we know now Mr. Weber lied. He lied back in 2017. He lied under oath in court. Why? Because in 2017 he knew he would be a suspect, so he lied about being at the crime scene. He said he was checking ATMs, and they believed him without checking if he ever actually were at the ATMs. They actually believed him, and just okay, on face value. And then in 2017 he lied again under oath. So he's a lying liar who lies. I've seen this on X that, you go there and try to do blah, blah, blah. I already been to Delphi, Indiana, you fucktwats. I have a whole stream about me and Mo walking around in Delphi, Indiana. I stayed, after Mo went home, I stayed in Delphi, Indiana for hours. Not one person approached me. Not one. Why? Don't know. Don't care. But for anybody, you should go there. I've already been there. And if I ever were to go back, I wouldn't forewarn anyone. I would just show up. And those diaper Nazis and inbred motherfuckers would probably not approach me again. Thank you, Brandon. I'm declaring this. You scared, white boy? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this stream is already demonetized, so yeah. Thank you for the monetary support, because there ain't going to be no ad revenue from this one. And no, I do not have midstream ads on my streams, on my live streams. I have ads on my videos. After this stream has concluded, I might put in an ad every 30 minutes, but you guys who are here live will not see ads. Okay? Let's get back to this. To obtain Mr. Allen's convictions, the state explicitly relied on Mr. Weber's testimony about the time he arrived home and used that testimony to corroborate Dr. Wallace's rendition of Mr. Allen's statement that he became scared after he saw a van, so he took the girls to the north side and ended them. This was the only statement allegedly made by Mr. Allen that contained any detail that might be true. The state therefore cannot show Mr. Weber's uncorrected false testimony about the time he arrived home did not have, quote-unquote, an effect on the outcome of the trial. Yeah, because the one juror who had come forward said explicitly it was the mention of the van. Now, that juror, being an absolute moron, besides the point, that's the jury system. You get morons on jurors. It's the bus stop people, an average of the average American, which means you can have people smarter than the average, and you can have this juror who barely knows how to breathe, in my opinion. Alternatively, where the court to find that the state did not know or should not necessarily have known about Exhibit 3A, then both exhibits constitute newly discovered evidence that would probably produce a different result at a new trial. Accordingly, for either reason, the court should either vacate Mr. Allen's conviction or set this motion for a hearing. And we all know Judge Gull will deny a hearing. She will just deny it without a hearing. But this, what they are doing here, is clever, because they are putting it on the record for appellate reasons. Now, sadly, even an expedited appeal is at least 2 years away. That's the sad truth of it. All right, let's go to the next one here. Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis before May 15th, 2017 is newly discovered evidence entitling Mr. Allen to a new trial. Yeah, folks. There are more evidence against Ron Logan in that one confession than the entirety of the case against Richard Allen. The entirety. And they ignored it. Oh, and I have some things that might not be apparent, but will explain why this was ignored. If I'm not too drunk to say it by then. Thank you, Nailing Maps to the Wall since 1969. I hereby declare this gold donation number 10 by decree of mathematics. Did you just say Ricky Bobby? What? Wait, what? Who's Ricky Bobby? I have no idea. Okay. Let me just check here. How many? I have one. I have 2 super stickers. So we are two from. We are still 2 from. But just in case, to be certain, just keep it going. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the monetary support you supply. I really, really appreciate it. And it will help me get into Utah in September and to Miami. Ricky Bobby is the lead character in the movie Talladega Nights. Okay. Not seen that one. Remember, I'm not American. I'm not American. All right. Dr. Kaur was the forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsies. His original opinion held for years about how they died was 2 weapons were used. One serrated blade and other a straight edge blade. For the first time at trial, having a eureka moment at his tool bench, Dr. Kaur opined that the girls could have been ended by a single box cutter rather than 2 different knives. Yeah. And thank you, Snacks. Near there. Yeah, we are near there. Near there. That box cutter is really important. Remember that box cutter thing, because this is something only the killer would know. Defendant's Exhibit 4A, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman in Defendant's Exhibit 4, is a redacted copy of a tip from the Orion database of tips dated May 15, 2017. In that tip, which the state has always had, Ron Logan is alleged to have confessed to Ricky Davis sometime before May 15th, while they were in prison together, that he had killed Libby and Abby. The material part of Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, as it appears, is produced below. Logan confessed to Ricky step by step of killing the 2 girls. Logan told Ricky how he burned his clothes clothed in a fire pit and where it was located, used box cutters and struggled with one of the girls and thought drops of blood from his nose ended up on her clothes. Ricky also advised that he killed the older girl first. And here is a footnote. Regarding Mr. Allen's supposed confession. He also said he shot the girls in the back and buried them in a shallow grave. Neither of the girls were shot in the back and neither was buried in a shallow grave. Nailing maps to the wall. Thank you for your $10. Challenge. We have a flag on the field. Accountant Gigi. Foul on the play. The goal is teal, as in $5 or higher. So it is not the amount. It is the total amount of dough. It's the number of supers. But yeah, okay. Darn it. Why did I agree to have Gigi as... All right, here we go. Apparently, we're on next shot. And I'm using gin. Thank you, Alan, for being here. Cheers. Still using beavers. The beaver shot glass because... And this is something I have over here. Where is it? Darn it, where are you? I have my beaver shot glass and I have my jug because I like beavers and jugs. Cheers. Oh. Oh, wow. All right, let's continue here. Yeah. When people claim, oh, he confessed 60 times. Yeah, he also confessed to killing his mother while on the phone with his mother. He also confessed to starting World War III and the murder of a matchstick. Yeah, so Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, as reflected in the tip on the Orion database and made a mere 3 months after the girls were killed, were detailed. Law enforcement followed up on the tip, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman, accurately reproduces the handwritten notes taken by Indiana State Police First Sergeant P. Hansard about his interview with Ricky Davis at the Newcastle Correctional Facility regarding Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis. Those handwritten notes of First Sergeant Hansard are attached to Indiana State Police Detective Wolf's lead narrative summary cover sheet, as it was provided to the defense in discovery. First Sergeant Hansard notes of his interview with Ricky Davis about Ron Logan's confession provide even more detail. And folks, this is not the only time Ron Logan allegedly confessed to another person. There's one more out there. So, 2 confessions with details that actually, back in 2017, nobody knew about. Iron Rabbit, member for 16 whole months, just up to hit the thumbs up. Now back to RL. And she gifted 5 memberships. Oh, I need to have a banner up. Hold on. I have no idea who's in the lead, but we have 5 new members. 5. There. No, wrong one. There. I have no idea who's in the lead between. I would assume it is Let's Go Brandon for the honor. I will just put down. Hold on. Honorary Viking. Let's go Brandon. As of now, I have no clue about the amount of thing. Yeah. John Schön, member for 4 months. I sent you a Twitter DM. Interview with Logan's girlfriend. Yes. If we get to it, Logan's then girlfriend, who he assaulted and almost murdered, her interview is out there. And all of a sudden, that one makes a lot more sense. And thank you so much, John Schön, for being a member for 4 months. Thank you so much. If any of you are considering being a member, $3 a month on YouTube. And you get members-only content and stuff like that. Oh, folks, for you who have been with my channel for more than a year, you know about Hugo, don't you? Hugo the ass burner. He was behind me for the first year. Let me present to you Hugo 2.0 from the seeds of Hugo the ass burner, because Hugo, he survived 2 years. 2 years as a plant. Not this year. So I planted some of the Hugo the ass burner seeds, and now we are going to get to see him grow up right back there again. Yay! Okay, let's get back to trial. No, the case, this thing. First Sergeant Hansen notes of his interview about Ron Logan's confession provide even more detail. Hard as they are to decipher and subject to debate and correction, those notes reveal the following about Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis. It seems to say, talking about knowing one of their dads. To walk with them. One of them wanted to turn around. Grabbed youngest shoulder. It's okay. Oldest freaked out. One said something about calling police. SA wasn't true. Originally not trying to do that to them. Paranoid about probation. Felt like he crossed line when he grabbed the youngest one. Which corroborates the walking around thing on the phone. He started talking. Ironic, should have been in school. Knew one of their mom's waitress at a bar. Here's the thing. Rick Allen knew nothing about these girls. Ron Logan, on the other hand, seems to know both the girls, one of the girls' moms, and one of the girls' dads in detail. Something Richard Allen had no knowledge about. Brandon, can I say railgin? Which word is they aren't located? I have no idea what that means. Thank you so much again for your $5 super chat. Yes, super chat censorship running wild today. Yeah, YouTube has gone overboard in my opinion. Hello, Slidey Pie over at Rumble. Yes, I am streaming this over at Rumble as well. You can find me there as Big Nick Starro on Rumble. And I'm also streaming to X. So if you're an X, get over here instead, because this actually pays me. X doesn't. Animals walked with them, willing to go check out horses. He told them he had rabbits in barn, walked through trail in woods, oldest paranoid, didn't want to go, youngest wanted to see horses. Ron at the time was in his early 60s or late 50s, I think. Eric Skade asks. I think chat will correct me if I'm wrong. Seems to say oldest turned to help youngest. Oldest started looking, kicking. Youngest seemed. He now grabbed oldest. He said he got hit on nose. Scared he got blood on one of the girls. We already know there is unknown male DNA on the girls. We already know that. Unknown. According to the prosecution, the amount is too small to test without destroying. I call BS on that. It might be too small for this local little crime lab. I do not believe it is too small for an actual outside crime lab. But why do I say that? Well, because I have covered the Gilgo Beach serial killer case, and they actually could extract full DNA profiles from hair that had been buried underground for 10 years. That's the level that specific crime lab is at. It's a private crime lab. So if they wanted in Carroll County, they could easily send it to that crime lab without destroying the evidence, without destroying the sample. They just don't want to, in my opinion. Pulled box cutter. Here it is, box cutter. Something only the actual killer would have known back in 2017. Slit oldest one, hit an artery. Youngest scared, took little girl with him for a while, never said where. He said he cut her to cut both necks. He left again, came back later in the evening. Search going on. And we know through cell phone data that Ron Logan was outside of his house roughly, and he got a text 20 minutes before the supposed you know about the contention about the phone, that headphones was plugged in and then plugged out at 10:30 something p.m. Well, he received a text at 10:00 something at the evening outside of his premise, outside of his home. Place where four-wheelers go. Burn his clothes in burn pile, hiking, boots, gloves, bag. Later I was trying to move oldest one to area not going to be found. Source of boots B in burn pile. Next morning, two other girls knocked on door, asked to search on property. Feel weird if he said no. He let them take off, got a hold of family member and got out of area. Yeah, remember also, he lied about his alibi. Ron Logan. He lied about his alibi. Ron Logan was 77 at the time. Let's just... Back in the day, Lois Gibson, certified forensic artist, made this in April 20th, 2017. Let me just show it. Hold on. She got a picture from the video of Bridge Guy, and then known person B. Above left to right is the image of known person B. Later top an image of suspect A in varying degrees of transparency. So here, over here on the left side is Bridge Guy. Here on the right side is a full image of Ron Logan. It is impossible to do a perfect comparison between persons in different photos due to variances in the angle of the lens, lighting, pose, time of photo, and other variables. However, when known person B's image is laid atop of suspect A's image in varying degrees of transparency, it seems to point out considerable similarities. If known person B was geographically near to the incident described in Carroll County Sheriff's case number this, the similarities shown by the above photo comparisons seem to indicate a possibility that they are one and the same person. Ron Logan, by the way, was 5'10". With no defense. Yeah, we all know, according to what the state presented at trial, they claimed that the girls had no defensive wounds, which somewhat contradicts Ron Logan's confession. But then it would have been easily disputed at trial. But this was never even allowed in. Yeah, Elena. Richard Allen is under 5'5". And every witness who claimed they saw a bridge guy or a man near the bridge at the time described either a tall person, taller than them, at 5'8". Not one described a short person. Not one. Even in trial, the prosecution didn't ask any of the witnesses to say, is the person you saw that day here in this courtroom? Not one of them. Because they were scared of the answer. And before you say, well, the defense didn't either, defense has no obligations. The 100% burden of proof is on the prosecution. Okay, let's get back to reading from the thing. And it seems to say, first time he's seen them from property, home, etc., guns, etc. During struggle, youngest girl, not. Happened to friend to stand there, head, neck, artery. Defendant's Exhibit 4C is a handwritten note signed by Ricky Davis dated June 21st, 2017. The same day First Sergeant Hansard interviewed him. That handwritten note is attached to the same lead narrative summary cover sheet and is contained in the same file as First Sergeant Hansard's handwritten notes that are Exhibit 4. B. Ricky Davis' handwritten note about Ron Logan's confession to him says, Mr. Logan has made reference to killings in Delphi, Indiana. He told me he was He was the one who had killed those girls, that it got out of hand. He walked with them in the woods to his property, and the girls wanted to turn back. Said something about walking the blah, blah, blah. He grabbed the youngest girl to reassure her it was okay. However, they panicked, and he also panicked. He indicated he ended up cutting the oldest with a box cutter. He went on telling me that he killed both of them because it was took too far. So in addition to the other details that fit the known facts, Ron Logan confessed to Ricky Davis that he used box cutters to kill the girls. If instead of for the first time at Mr. Allen's trial, Dr. Kaur said 7 years earlier, said the girls could have been killed by a box cutter, there would certainly have been probable cause to arrest and charge Ron Logan with the girls' murders. As it was, the FBI, 2 months before Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, had obtained a judicial finding of probable cause to search Ron Logan's property. You would assume that would be enough nexus to allow Judge Gull to allow a third-party defense. She didn't, because she's a cunt. Welcome to my show. I use cursive words. Under the circumstances, Dr. Core's trial testimony about the box cutter possibly being used to murder the girls makes Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis newly discovered evidence that would either be admissible through Ricky Davis or through First Sergeant Hanson under the due process clause. Ron Logan's confession exculpates Mr. Allen and would probably produce a different result at the retrial. Accordingly, the court should either vacate Mr. Allen's convictions or set this motion for a hearing. We all know Judge Gull will deny this without a hearing. Next one. Defendant's Exhibit 5. The affidavit of Stacey Eldridge states that dirt or water damage to the phone could not have been caused the auxiliary jack on Eldridge's phone to log wired headphone plugged in and wired headphones unplugged. Miss Eldridge's expert opinion is newly discovered evidence that would probably produce a different result at a new trial. Hey, Brandon. If you're not first, you're last to get skewed with the box cutter, Ricky Bobby. I need to watch that movie. What was it? Talladega Nights? I have no idea what that is. I'm not American. And now officially we are goal achieved. Start another goal. Huh? All right, no new goal up. We are 2 or 3 ahead of it already, I think. I don't know. GD is the official counter. I don't do math normally. I'm even worse when I do this. Yeah, so this at trial, the defense had an expert say about the plug in and plug out of something through the headphone slot in her iPhone. Then apparently the state had one of their officers go outside and Google it during a break and came back to testify. It's absolutely horrendously stupid that was even allowed. But it was allowed in because Judge Gull is a cunt. So all of that, I've been through that part already. Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, Mr. Allen respectfully requests that the court either vacate his conviction or set the matter suitable for hearing, and for all other just and proper relief in the premises. So this is by Alec Baldwin, Andrew Baldwin, Jennifer Auger, and Bradley Roddy. This is probably the final thing they could do for Mr. Allen as their actual defense attorneys. Now, from now on, it is his appellate attorneys that has the power. Unless, by some odd reason, Judge Gull decides to hold a hearing or vacate the conviction, which I don't believe she will. Now, let's go to some of the other things here. I want to talk to you about hold on while I get this. We already got through this. Kathy Shank. Remember her? Kathy Shank is the heroess, the hero who just happened to come by Mr. Allen's phoned-in tip. Just happened to. By sheer coincidence. She just happened. Shank, not Kathy Shat. Well, she's a shit, but Kathy Shank. And this might be new to a lot of you. Kathy Shank has worked with this Orion tip since 2017. She has been an integral part of this investigation all the time. She was not just a person who walked in one day, volunteered, and then accidentally came across Richard Allen's phoned-in tip. Ow! Mr. Jingles, do not boop with claws, please. Do not boop with claws. Lead details. Investigator Kathy Shank. Lead coverage, full coverage discovered by Kathy Shanks. Lead is discontinued due to no follow-up with Ricky Davis. She decided that the Ron Logan lead would be discontinued. Full coverage covered by Kathy Shank on behalf of Jay Harper. She decided that the Ron Logan lead would be discontinued. She is also the one who decided that in 2022 that Rick Allen, that's the guy. She decided. Now, why would she do such a thing? She is just a random person, right? Just a random person, right? Prosecution said she's just a random person. Just a random person. Kathy Shank has a daughter named Dahlia West. Here is Dahlia West. Who said, Delphi PD knows that I'm going to roast them now that the trial is over. They knew from day one that Ron Logan wasn't guilty. Notice how they effed up every single aspect of this case so much that they relied on my 70-year-old mother to solve it for them. But they still won't release even a posthumous apology to Ron Logan and his family, who have they known from day one was never guilty because he had a rock-solid alibi. Ron Logan had no alibi. Zero alibi. But why would Dahlia West, the daughter of Kathy Shank, say all this after the trial? Let's go back in time. My mom, Dahlia West, my mom understands how much I hate Murder Sheet. She understands I am honor-bound in the name of Ron Logan to throw hands at those douche canoe. You did Ron Logan dirty, and I am honor-bound to say it. Why is Dahlia West honor-bound to Ron Logan? Dahlia West is local to Delphi, Indiana. At the time, in 2017, she was in her I believe, her 30s. Why was she honor bound for Ron Logan? So we have the mother of an honor-bound child to Ron Logan deciding that Ron Logan wasn't a suspect. We have the mother of a child honor-bound to Ron Logan who decided that Richard Allen should be the prime suspect. All of this was known by the prosecution. Yeah, thank you, Ghost, for the quote. Kathy Shank, who volunteered as a clerk, came across a box of tip sheets in a desk drawer that led to an arrest in the 2017 killings of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi. WR-TV. Head of CPS. Why? Again, in the grand scheme of things, it's odd, but in context, why would Kathy Shanks remove Ron Logan, considering it all and done? Well, she had a child that was honor bound to Ron Logan. Now, what does honor bound mean? In the military, it means leave no man behind. That's honor bound. This isn't the military. This is civilians. Why would anybody be honor bound to Ron Logan? Hey, Mo is in the house. Mo is in the house. Thanks for covering this. Yeah, I had to. I'm just asking questions here because I really don't know the answers why Dahlia West would be honor bound to Ron Logan. What kind of inbred cult made her honor bound to Ron Logan? And her mother somehow being credible in saying Ron Logan isn't a suspect. With confessions on 2 separate occasions. With actual things only the murderer would know. The box cutter. Testified to in court. Box cutter. Ron Logan. The evidence against Ron Logan, even with just this, is magnitudes more than any evidence against Richard Allen. Now, I don't believe DNA traces, say that they actually somehow, the corrupt, devil-worshipping, absolute fucktwat police department in Carroll County would say, or the McClellan would send this off to a good crime lab to extract at least partial DNAs because partial DNAs might not include somebody, but they will absolutely exclude. So the unknown male DNA, if there are alleles in that, like in the Zachary Anderson case, if the alleles don't match, then you know. And if they at least took that absolutely microscopic test to see, okay, we now know that Richard Allen's DNA was not present. That same alleles might not include Ron Logan, but it wouldn't exclude it for Ron Logan. Do I believe Ron Logan is the actual killer of the girls? I don't know. I really don't know. Because we have other confessions. We have other evidence against this local diaper Nazi Odinist cult. Were there more than one person committing this? Yeah, that's my absolute opinion. One person could not have done this. But somehow, and I do believe this is the opinion of the prosecution as well, because remember, folks, the tip line is still open. They refuse to close any investigations of other people involved. Because they know, even though they brought forward to the jury, to the court, that Richard Allen and Richard Allen alone did this, they were lying. They know themselves there was more than one person involved in this. How many confession exists for this murder? Well, we have the Ron Logan one, we have the Elvis Fields one, and then we have Brad. What's his face again? Okay, with the man whose son dated one of the girls. Yeah, we have Westfall as well. Mo, I'm going to send you an invite. Mo, hold on. Oh, the professor. Folks, I just received, because I sent an invite to the professor a while ago, and about 13 minutes ago, he said he will be ready in 10 minutes. So he might be here. Let's see, where's Mo? Speak of the devil. Not the devil. I'm going to send this to Mo as well. Folks, let me introduce to you a person who has still not been on this channel. We have passed by each other. Folks, it's the professor. Hey!
Hello.
Good.
Hello to you, Nick.
Good. Hello to you too. Oh, sorry. Let me get this out of the way. Oh, I just went through the correction of errors.
I was listening.
Oh, it's mind-boggling. I mean, I knew it was bad. I've been covering this case for almost 2 years. I knew it was bad. I had no idea it was this bad. The detail.
I just got to say, and I said this recently, is that I just kudos to the author of that particular document. I think it was very well done, and it brought up a lot of good points, many of which you just highlighted.
Yeah. Now I went through, and I also went through the Kathy Shanks, why she and I, how they portrayed her in trial. I haven't seen I have no transcript, but I've heard the people who were in the room, how they portrayed her as a volunteer who just happened to be there that day. She's been there.
Poor innocent little old lady.
Yeah. There's nothing innocent about that lady.
No. And Nick, I was impressed that you actually brought up her daughter's Twitter account, because I've been tuned into that as well. I went and documented it all. It's alarming. It's alarming. Her daughter is alarming. And you brought up a good point that I had not thought to bring up, which was, isn't it odd that the woman who cleared Ron Logan and who pointed the finger directly at Richard Allen, brought him into this, is the mother of the woman who is honor bound to protect Ron Logan.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And now, as I said just a few minutes ago, do I believe Ron Logan is the actual killer? I don't know. And in the matter of Richard Allen, it doesn't matter, because this wasn't provided to the jury to take into account. But clearly, the evidence against Ron Logan is magnitudes better than any evidence against Richard Allen.
I agree with that statement you made as well. Totally. And I was also going to say that I also agree that I have no clue if Ron Logan was involved in the killings or not. I think he certainly had knowledge after the fact. Mm-hmm. But magnitudes more compelling evidence on him than on Richard Allen. And it makes me wonder, going back to these alleged confessions of Richard Allen, wherein, how would I say, the facts only a killer would know, like for instance, the van. Well, we all know, I know you know, that this was known about from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, going back, when I heard about the van, in a stream, I said, this is the first time I've heard about this. Then I went back to a stream I made a year and a half ago. I knew about it a year and a half before trial about the van. I just forgot about that. I knew it. And the van, also as in another case streamer who talked about the van 6 months before the trial began. Let's just not mention that YouTuber's name, because they are very, very trigger happy. Mm-hmm. And so, that in itself says everybody knew about the van. But then again, all of a sudden, the van wasn't there prior to 2:32 p.m.
And I wanted to add, the reason I brought that up is that I felt exactly when this document dump happened Monday or Tuesday, I felt exactly the same about the box cutter. For me, the whole weight or the gravity of the Ron Logan portion of this was the mention of a box cutter, because I had had those letters from the inmates, because there's another one, I think it's Brian Haas is his name, but there are a couple inmates who have written letters about Ron Logan. And
individually of each other, because apparently these two inmates have never met.
Right.
And so independent of each other, both are claiming Ron Logan confessed. And
so I guess what I'm getting at is that I had totally forgotten the mention of a box cutter from Mr. Davis. But when this document dropped and I read through the points about Ron Logan in that portion, I thought, oh my God, this means the details regarding a box cutter so the concept of a box cutter being brought into this crime, it was known years ago through this letter from Reese Davis.
Yeah.
So it's nothing unique. And to claim that it's a unique thing that only Richard Allen would know, it's just another red flag. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So far, we're batting at zero.
Yeah, and we know Dr. Wella is now fired because of misconduct. Mm-hmm. Or her contract was up and it wasn't renewed, which more or less means it's fired. She was fired. And everything that Richard Allen, in his psychotic break, was talking about, amongst killing his mother while on the phone with his mother, starting World War III, killing a matchstick, and everything else. She shredded her notes. We only have a word for it.
Mm-hmm.
We know she's a true crime fan. We know she more or less asked to be Mr. Allen's therapist. I would say this out loud. Miss Vala, you fed Mr. Allen these confessions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've said that many times, and my feeling is sue me, okay? Because it would be akin to me being Richard Allen's therapist. Do you think that would be appropriate? As engaged?
No, or a certain other YouTube streamer being Mr. Allen's psychologist. And
we cannot be fans of this murder scenario and go and treat a patient.
No.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's inappropriate.
No, that in itself is unethical.
Mm-hmm.
In itself.
Exactly. And so I do believe, when it comes to those type of details, I think there was some fishing that she was doing. And you know how you can make a statement in a question. It's very easy to make a statement by asking a question.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that she made statements in the form of questions to him to fish out, like, did you use a box cutter?
Yeah. And I mean, I do labor law. Sometimes I use that trick against, if I know it works on opposing counsel. I use that myself to get my client in a better light. It's nothing unusual, but that is me as a jurist in a closed setting with an opposing party in a negotiation. Nobody's getting thrown in prison. For a therapist to do this, no, it's completely unethical. But it is what do you call it? Argumental fallacy of sorts to make the other person agree to your statement. Mm-hmm. Prosecutors do it all the time in trials when they say, "Don't you agree that?" and then the question, eliciting a yes or no answer. But for a therapist, no. And folks, yes, I know there is some controversy about my guest. I don't care.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, controversy on this channel. Yeah, we've been through it here as well. I've been watching The Professor for quite some time. Do I agree with everything that's going on? No. That's just it. But he does have information and the integrity to say, this is my opinion. And that's good enough for me. For instance, another person who is a more usual guest here, Dave. There are people out there that hates Dave. I don't care. You might do it. He's a friend of mine. Do I agree with him on that particular subject you hate him for? No. Besides the point.
Take what you like and leave the rest. It doesn't matter to me. I do just fine sitting here in my living room. But I do appreciate you inviting me. I do. We've been trying to connect in this way for a little bit. So.
Yeah, because I've been covering the YSL trial for a year and a half, and I've been succumbed into other cases. So I haven't been able to cover or research the Richard Allen case as much as I would like to, which you have done. So you have probably information I only heard of, but I haven't had the ability to analyze it. And now reading through the verified motion to correct errors. Now, this is extremely damning towards the prosecution because it shows clearly the amount of misconduct they did to get Mr. Allen to trial.
Yes.
But there are also, as some people have pointed out, where's the Odinist thing? Does it really matter that the Odinist thing is missing from this particular?
No, pardon. No, I've said that here's a thing, that none of that changes the facts that are included in the Franks memorandum, because the Franks memorandum is stuffed with facts. Now, the overarching it's difficult to form a narrative because you have all of these factual points, and then in the Frank's memorandum, there is an attempt to provide this context and overarching narrative towards these data points. And what I've done, I've equally been critical. I think some people hate me because I've been critical of the defense. Because I have no skin in the game. My whole goal is not even Richard Allen. My whole goal is the truth about this for those two little girls who are not here to fight for it themselves. And I find it unfortunate that Mr. Richard Allen has been caught up in this process. So he becomes sort of another victim who's been mowed over by the process. But looking at this Frank's memorandum, I think that it's full of data points that are factual, that can be backed up, and that come from discovery and law enforcement's own investigation.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do you establish that in a context that people can understand and digest as to why these particular points might be true and how they might tie? And the way that I do so is I establish a broader context, because I think the Odinist signatures are just like lots of things that this criminal element does in society, where in order to reach for power, they like to co-opt powerful people. So they like to hide behind masks and things like that. So I believe the Odinist charade is a part, sort of it's something to hide behind, and
it's a red herring of sorts.
Yeah, so I sort of move that aside and I look at the points. Like, we know now that yes, Elvis Fields did say that he spat on one of the girls, not like Jerry Holman says that he spat somewhere else and someone scooped it up. No, he says that he was there with the girls and two other guys, and that he spat on the girls and the two other guys killed the girls. Like, there are things that we can take away. And I'm apologizing if there's audio problems. I can't deal with them. I've been getting complaints of that often, but
I have had that same thing with I changed the cord for a new cord and a better cord.
Maybe
and then it went away. So it's probably the cord. But also in this, the verified motion to correct errors is only about things that was allowed in at trial. So they really can't address the Frank's memo and the Odinist. That will be for a new trial. The motion is about, this is what we need to correct that was actually provided to the jury at trial. That is why you don't hear the Odinist thing in this motion. So it's not... but I'm really, really interested in reading the actual Odin report.
Me too. Me too. That's interesting because I've been waiting, because there should be two, correct? There should be the Kevin Murphy and the Todd Click, and I'm looking for both of those. And and I wanted to say in regards to what you were saying also, remember, this was also not a motion to introduce newly discovered evidence. And I would be willing to bet that we will eventually learn that there is newly discovered evidence that has not been brought into this yet. But everything in due time in this process, because like a game of cards, you don't want to show your hand. So I believe that this process will play out.
Yeah. Because the Odinist things are for a retrial. This is because this motion is for Judge Gull to correct. She won't do it. We can almost guarantee that. Which makes this an appellate issue. Which makes the appellate issues more thorough and everything. Now, if this does get brought back to trial, to a new trial, then depending on how the appellate is written, then we will see what Judge Gull can't avoid. Because if the appellate court says you did wrong here, more or less a 20-point you did wrong here, then she has to address all 20 points to correct herself in the next trial. If they only do a generalized thing, then she only has to do a generalized approach to the retrial. If this doesn't survive, if this doesn't get, if the appellate court says everything is well and dandy, then it goes to the state Supreme Court for decision. Then you can bring all the new evidence in the next stage of the appeals. And so this is just how the justice system works in the United States. So as of now, only the actual errors committed by Judge Gull in trial and pre-trial motions and stuff, that is what they can bring up. That is why they filed this motion, verified motion to correct errors. And so they focused here on the 5 or 6 points that are, and the first count. I mean, I didn't actually know. I found out that he actually had counsel. I had no idea for this safekeeping proceeding that not only did they not notify the counsel, they didn't even notify Mr. Allen. They had this all ex parte. And for my audience who have seen me in the YSL trial, ex parte meetings are always presumed to be prejudicial towards the defendant. Always. That is why it's extremely, extremely narrowed. This is what you're allowed to do as ex parte. And everything in that safekeeping, everything in it is a violation of due process and the Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendment. Everything in it is a violation of everything the Western country judicial should stand for. Everything in it, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see how seriously that is addressed, but I mean, that seems to be a major faux pas there to and keep in mind, not only was his attorney not present and notified, but he was not. And to me, that's...
Yeah. Now, if a court finds this to be an actual violation of his due process rights and constitutional rights, then everything that happened past his arrest is fruit of the poisonous tree. Everything. Exactly.
Well, even before the arrest, because the search warrant application itself, yes, the fruit of the poisonous tree. You see, often I bite my tongue, Mr. Starrow, because I don't want to sabotage any good faith efforts on the part of anyone in this community. And by that, I mean from the investigators to the attorneys to the audience. So I try to be very reserved in my speech. But some 2 years ago, after the arrest of Richard Allen, when that PCA first was, I guess, exposed to the public, I spoke to many people, but one of the most important people I speak to is a former leader in law enforcement who is retired and very knowledgeable, has handled thousands of cases and investigations and PCAs and search warrants, etc., because he was a leader of a law enforcement organization here in the United States. And when that document dropped, we talked about it, and he said, "Prof, I'm telling you now, there's a problem there. And the problem is the fruit of the poisonous tree." Well, up until that point, I had never heard the term. So he broke down for me what that meant and how it trickles on down years into the future. And I'd like to say this: there's still no guarantee that that PCA for that search will not end up becoming poisonous, and this whole thing won't go away. Because remember, when appeals look at this, and if for any reason the Supreme Court or the feds would look at this, it's going to bounce back to the very beginning, the very first steps, which would be that Tony Liggett PCA, which contains omissions from the judge to keep information from the judge, misrepresentations. It conflates certain witness sightings. For instance, the vehicles are all conflated.
Yeah, that is one of the, because was it? I don't remember if it was. I don't remember who said these vehicles are similar to each other. But folks, a smart car, a Ford Focus, and a PT Cruiser. If you believe those are similar to each other, you should be institutionalized, because there's something very, very wrong with your mind, sight, everything. There's nothing.
Especially the 65 Mercury comet.
Yeah.
No, can I say something? I'd like to give you something for your viewers, because I have not discussed this, and this is extremely compelling, because I did some research. Purple PT Cruiser. If you go back and you look at what vehicle Cheyenne was driving during that very day, your jaw will hit the floor. Because for me, that purple PT Cruiser is an attempt to describe her vehicle. Same color, same general shape. Now, the problem occurs in that if you consider that that witness saw Cheyenne's vehicle, it's at a different place and a different time, which puts her there earlier, parked at CPS, which means that she then at some point moved her vehicle closer to the trails. So, which means she has not necessarily been honest about the time she arrived and where she first parked. And I think that's going to eventually become an element. But I would encourage everyone
for
dig
the audience
into
who
her
doesn't
vehicle.
know who Cheyenne is, please. Who doesn't know who Cheyenne is? Who is she in relation to this? Did you? If you can enlighten the audience, who is Cheyenne?
Well, Cheyenne has had several names. Cheyenne Mills, Cheyenne Ingalls, Hooligan. But Cheyenne, was driving a Chrysler 300 purple or burgundy. If you look at a Chrysler 300 from that time period and then consider an individual passing quickly and recalling that they witnessed a purple PT Cruiser, and you do a side-by-side with a purple PT Cruiser and a burgundy Chrysler 300, your mind will blow, because it's much more likely that that person witnessed a Chrysler 300 burgundy and mistook it for a purple PT Cruiser than witnessing Richard Allen's Ford Focus. So it's very important, and I think that was one thing that has slipped by everyone in considering all of these vehicle. See, in my opinion, what happened is you had many vehicles out there, and the people who were out there have not been forthcoming. And so when the witnesses are describing all these different vehicles, they're literally describing all these different vehicles. And our sheriff or Tony Liggett basically conflated all of these vehicles to make it Richard Allen's vehicle. And I just think it's highly unlikely.
But the question was, who is Cheyenne in this scenario?
Oh, in this scenario, she's allegedly a witness who was there after the time that these girls were abducted. Now, in my opinion, listen, because no one's been cleared, it's okay to speculate on people who were there at that place and time, in my opinion. So my opinion is she's not been honest about her time and place and all of that. But I think that's the case with all of them, because I've noticed there's a golden zone. The golden zone is from 2 to 3. No one on earth wants to be out there between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. because that's the time something bad happens to those girls.
Yeah.
And so all of these witnesses place themselves there prior and after to that golden zone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Cheyenne is one of them who is out there with a friend doing what God knows what. She ends up taking photographs towards the end of her visit, which pin her there at a certain time. But as I mentioned, I believe her car was there earlier, and that's what our Purple PT Cruiser witness observed was her Chrysler 300. And remember, Cheyenne and her friend Shelby intersected with two other people, which were Daniel Pearson and Shelby Hicks, okay, which put them all there at the same place and time at some point during this entire story. Now, Daniel Pearson has dropped off the map. Shelby Hicks came into trial, and Cheyenne came into trial, but Cheyenne's friend she was present with, Shelby Duncan, did not come into trial. So there seems to be this odd picking of people that were brought into trial, and it's really odd that Shelby Hicks and Cheyenne are brought to verify each other's stories, where Daniel Pearson and Shelby Duncan are nowhere to be found. So that's the basics of Cheyenne.
Yeah, and all of this, again, I'm reiterating this stuff I already said, but again, not one of the witnesses at the trial that day picked out Mr. Allen. Not one. Yeah. And that, for me, that is one of the sneaky things from the prosecution. They put them on the stand, but they didn't ask a question. And then they go with the excuse, well, it was 7 years later. No, it was 5 years later. Because the moment you arrested Mr. Allen, if you did not do a photo book lineup, then you probably already knew you couldn't pin him. And we all seen the 3 different sketches of the people who were allegedly bridge guy. And the 4th who was at the mailbox. We all seen it. There are 4 completely different people. People are describing 4 completely different people. And in my opinion, none of them are describing Richard Allen. So probably, also in my opinion, Richard Allen was there not after 2 p.m.
Which is what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, as you mentioned earlier, the shredding of Miss Walla's documents. Well, it's odd with the person who is putting Richard Allen there at that time is Dan Doolin, who also destroyed his document and did not record it when it was his practice to record these interactions for receiving tips in person. So that's alarming. Yeah. And what was I going to say? That on your point about the identification, don't you find that extremely alarming? That so there were 2 ways in which they could have prodded these witnesses. As you mentioned, they could have put a lineup with Richard Allen in it and said, pick out who you saw. And that didn't happen in the investigation. And then regarding the sketches, it could have been asked, is the person you intended to portray in the sketch sitting in the courtroom? Okay, well, that wasn't allowed because the sketches were not allowed in. And then another level is the question could have been directly asked is, the person that you saw out there that day, do you recognize them sitting in the courtroom? And neither of those things happened. And I just look back to reverse engineer it. I think, well, what's the first way you would describe Richard Allen? As you would say a little short guy, a little guy, a little short, fat guy, whatever.
Yeah. And we know the height of the witnesses. And one of them, 5'8", described him as taller than her. And I've actually seen this on X. Somebody suggested he had lifts and platform shoes. Folks, if you enhance your height with 4 or 5 inches. That is noticeable, especially from a girl. They will, oh, he had platform shoes.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, come on. I mean, sometimes the speculation gets unreasonable, and claiming he had lifts, 5-6 inch of lifts in his boots. I mean, come on.
That's straight up troll farm gaslighting. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, and I've also seen, because there are certain accounts out there who does everything in their power to, well, it's proved now the van was there. I don't care about the timing of it. Well, the timing of the van, that's the important. The van isn't important in itself. The timing of the van is what is important. It had to be there prior to 2:32 p.m. It had to. And probably 3, 4, 5 minutes, because according to the prosecution, he was startled. He took the girls to their final resting place and killed them.
I mean, Nick, it would take more than 2 minutes to cross that creek. If that's what they want to allege happened, it would take more than 2 minutes to cross that creek when it's up to here.
Yeah. I mean we are talking of 3.5, 4 feet of water at the time.
Yeah, no.
Richard Allen, 5'4" or just under 5'5" with boots.
The little girls too. I mean, and the phone doesn't show water damage. There's no indication they crossed the creek. I'm sorry. It's in my world. There's this, like, the reason I'm controversial with some people is I'm very adamant about show me the evidence.
Yeah.
Prove it to me, and then I'll entertain it. Otherwise, I'll say, well, look, we'll talk about it when you can show me something.
Yeah. And here's the thing. They were found the next morning. Oh, their clothes were damp. No, well, duh. They spent the night outdoors in mid-February on damp ground, on dew, on everything. Of course, everything was damp. That's not an issue here. The issue is, could you see that the clothes at one point was soaking wet? And no, that was not in evidence, that the clothes at some point was soaking wet. How do you know that? Because soaking wet clothes on yourself will have, because you shred, what do you call it? Bodily functions. I mean, you shred skin cells and salt. If your clothes are soaked, look at a person who has been out working outside all day. You will have, in my case, because I'm a large guy, I will have salt trace as the boob sweat. So soaking wet clothes that are drying on the body will have that residue. There's no way around it. And there was none of that.
Mm-mm. There's no evidence. You know, backing it up to, I thought of this when you were speaking earlier, is that the funny thing about this, and it's only funny in a comedy of tragic comedy context, but the tragedy in all of this is, for each of these points, there's so many problems. You know, when you back off of this and you look at everything, like we've just talked for maybe, I don't know what, 40 minutes. We haven't even talked about the fact that there's 70 days, including the first week, totally deleted.
Yeah.
There's the failure to extract everyone's cell phone, including all the alleged witnesses. I mean, there's just problem after problem after problem after problem. And no matter which point you look at, it's rife with problems. And it's not just incompetence from the law enforcement. It's, you know, the witnesses have problems, the family has problems, the victims have problems, the Keegan Klein has problems, the law enforcement has problems, prosecutor has problems. There's problems everywhere. It's alarming.
Yeah, we haven't addressed the fact that I keep forgetting his name because he is so unimportant to me as a person. The dad of one of the girl's boyfriend.
Holder, maybe?
Yeah, Brad Holder. Yeah, thank you. I keep forgetting his name because he is an absolute scam, nobody, absolute. I mean, yeah, no. Brad Holder is a diaper Nazi who thinks he knows stuff, and he is a disgrace to everything. My ancestors, the real Vikings, he is just a disgrace. He has no idea what he's doing. He's pretending to do stuff. Brad Holder, if you see this, go fuck yourself. Go take a long.
I'm absolutely confident, and I said it last night. For me, all of these vendors, so back to the Odinist. See, I don't think we're dealing with fucking Odinist. Odinist is a mask. Pardon the language.
Yeah.
I
agree. It's a facade for people to do evil things.
Yeah, we're dealing with gang members, okay? Whether it's Finlanders, Hammerskins, white supremacists, fucking bikers, whatever you want to call them, we're dealing with a criminal element that's an arm of the organized crime in the Midwest, in my opinion. This organized crime, whatever they were up to, this element who all should be in prison, they are the reason these girls are dead. Now, as I mentioned, pigeonholing any of these parties is really ignorant, because you got the Odinist, Ron Logan, Keegan Kline, all of these people are tied to this element. Like Ron Logan was a known friend of Brad Holder and Tony Kline. So that's a nexus right there.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a very good reason that all of these people could be brought together in this web. It shouldn't be on us to prove it or the defense. It should be on the prosecutor to see. They've proven it to a jury by omitting pertinent facts. And that's what my problem is at this point, because otherwise I would respect the process. But when you have a judge do what this judge did to keep the jury only had one way to go. And that's where the crime is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You kept them ignorant.
They were not allowed to be actual fact finders in this trial. And some of the things that has been revealed in the past year, Brad Holder and Prosecutor McClelland are connected. They are a part of the same masonry. I had no idea. I mean, that was revealed maybe in October or November to me, that they were actually part of the same masonry.
And Logan Holder and Doug Carter. I mean, and who else that hasn't been found out?
Yeah, because Carroll County, the biggest town in Carroll County is Delphi, Indiana. Delphi, Indiana has 3,000 inhabitants. A third of them, well, 2/3 of them adults. It's a really, really tiny place. And, I don't have that up, but there is some tweets, Facebook, where they say, where they always talk about outsiders. And which goes back to my coverage of the Flora 4. The 4 girls who were killed in an arson just months before this. And people claim there is a connection between them. I haven't found it yet, but the connection is outsiders. Who cares about 4 black girls in a 98% white community?
Is this entire community is so combative in that way, and it's been interesting. But I went down into the research of German descendants in the Midwest and the German Baptists, and also the what do you call them? The Amish. This type of element of society that's very conservative and very self-sufficient and it likes excluding everyone. We're sort of at ground zero in Indiana, in this part of Indiana, for those people, and they're extremely reluctant to embrace outsiders, and that's why Nick McClelland right now, at this very moment, he's been on this PR.
Him and Holder has been on a PR tour because they are trying to get in front of what they know is coming, because now the floodgates are getting opened.
Yeah.
With this motion to correct errors. Now we know more. And folks, there's so much more that has been hidden from us by the prosecution and Judge Gull. There's so much. This is barely the tip of the iceberg.
He buried everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nick McClellan, he's out there. He's saying a couple things that are alarming. He's saying, stop saying bad things about Delphi and about Carroll County, and it's the YouTubers are the problem. To me, that's telling. It's
yeah. They are so scared. They are scared shitless about what we are about to find out. Because now when it's out of Judge Gull's hands and into the hands of the appellate attorneys, now I don't know what evidence they have shredded meanwhile, but this alone, this correct errors motion, that alone, because what these 6 points they take up in this motion is barely the tip of the iceberg in this case. Barely the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. So much more. People are comparing McClellan to Ned Flanders. I would like to call him the Walmart Commissioner Gordon.
So can I bring up some points that
Yeah,
I'd like
sure.
to add, because I think it's easy to miss these because that motion to correct error was so compelling, and I know I covered it with a lot of elation and joy, but there was also this included in this series was the motion to preserve evidence. Now it was great. Let me read some points from it, or I'll go through the bullets to make it easy. They're asking, because you remember they had asked Judge Gull to order the prosecution and the law enforcement to preserve everything.
Yeah.
Of course, unhinged as she is, she said, no, that's too general. So they came back and they said, okay, you want specific? Here you go. Preserve all physical evidence from the crime scene, including any belts, cigarette butts, or electronic items working or not. Now let me just stop there. You know what?
Why would they say cigarette butts?
I'm sorry, Nick, I didn't hear you.
Why would they say cigarette butts unless that is a part of the evidence that was excluded?
Let me tell you. That's what that's where I'm heading at. To me, I'm reading this like a book. It's telling me from the crime scene, there are at least one belt, at least one cigarette butt, and at least one electronic item that's not Libby's phone that's possibly non-functional. So that means we got more evidence that may provide DNA or digital forensics, okay? Then they ask...
one thing here. They might, in that, they might do, they are referring to phones that may have been in the area, which was also denied by Judge Gull, the geographic thing with the cell towers. What phones were there at the time?
I believe...
So they might, but that's speculation from my part.
I apologize, but I believe there have been phones found after the bodies were discovered that law enforcement is in possession of that have not been brought into evidence. So you understand? So this is property, but not in discovery. So it's known that these phones exist, but for some reason or the other, possibly because they were in a non-functional condition, they were not brought in. So I believe we will see the possibility that there are more devices that had been discovered in that vicinity that are relevant to this, possibly.
Or phones belonging to a person of interest that actually is in the belongings of the Carroll County office, but haven't been introduced as evidence. Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah.
Phones that I guess I would say because that place was scoured, so there were things found that for whatever reason were not brought into to evidence in this case against Richard Allen or in discovery provided to the defense because of that, but could have a connection to the crime because they were in the area.
Yeah.
But they also asked for DNA swabs taken before, during, and after trial. For me, that's interesting. So they're asking for all DNA. Then they're asking for same with any other forensic evidence. And then they're asking for the documentation of all reports or lists that identify those who were in the interviews that were deleted.
Yeah,
which is big.
Yeah, that's the list that the prosecution claimed up until he took the stand didn't exist, and all of a sudden on the stand he says, "Oh, of course I have a list of the people we interviewed back then." Completely new revelation, sort of, because when they tried to ask the what's his face about, well, at least you must have had a list of these people you interviewed in those 70 days. Back then he said no.
Right.
In trial he said, of course I have a list.
Isn't that alarming? So
yeah, they could have interviewed these people. Had he produced that list prior to trial, they could have interviewed these people. But he actively lied to them, saying first, no, we don't have a list. And then I tried, what are you talking about? Of course I had a list.
Yeah, so he said, don't have a list, can't tell you, so sorry. And now the story is, oh no, of course we have it. You see, for me, that meant they didn't want the defense to go back and depose any of those people or to dig up those handwritten notes if there were any. I mean, for me, this is just I said yesterday, they wonder why the public is outraged.
Yeah. Yeah. And when the first interview with Holder, even when Vinny from Crime Court TV, Vinny Polito, when Holman said, we wish you would have been there. And Vinny, that was a trigger. We could have. But you denied us. So when you say you absolutely, well, Vinny didn't say it out loud, but I'm reading between the lines. Holman, you absolute twat. We could have been there, but you denied us. So don't come here after the fact and say you wish we would have been there, because we all wanted to be there. Exactly.
I mean, Vinny is he's actually making me a fan, whereas before I didn't care because of stances exactly like that. You see, you have caused a lack of transparency from day one. Remember, when those girls were found, we don't have any transparency from the day they went missing, much less to trial. So he was absolutely right. There could have been people's suspicions could have been put to rest. But now what you have is a snowball. People are going to continually ask more and more questions, and the lack of transparency is going to cause people to be more and more suspicious. So you got a problem with your hands now.
Yeah, and the sheer fact that the lack of transparency. Now, a lot of trials out there doesn't have transparency. That's just a matter of fact. This one in Indiana, there were every possibility to live stream this trial. Even Judge Gull, a few years ago when this was up, she was one of the people who argued for transparency and to live stream things in court until it was her trial.
Yeah, and I thought about that hypocrisy or contradiction a lot, and I think why she was advocating it because it's bad for the defendant. Okay, because if you have a little guy who's in there for selling some dope on the streets, you have him broadcast on those cameras, it's a bad look for him because you've taken that private you've taken that private shaming of him and conviction possibly and the evidence, and you've blasted it to the world. But when it came where her ass and Nicholas McLean's ass were on the line, she cut those cameras off because she didn't want this total clown show to be broadcast to the world. So when it behooves her, she wants the cameras, and when it's a bad reflection, she doesn't want it. And so that
because I say they, as in the prosecution and Judge Gull, they could argue we were clowns. Oh, the conspiracy theories, they are making things up. First of all, for you to say that defense made everything up, go screw yourselves. Everything in the Frank's motion was in discovery. Everything was either from the investigators themselves, the group who investigated the Odinist lead, or FBI. None of it was manufactured by the defense. Everything was in discovery. Everything. And now sadly, it had to take Richard Allen to go to prison. I mean, I hoped, we always have hope that they would acquit him, but nah, there was really no hope. Not the way everything was presented to them, the jury. But now they can't stop the floodgates because
that Nick occurred to me so I do not recommend anyone go consume Murder Sheet, but I'm telling you, when I read through this transcript of this juror, it was completely alarming because basically what she revealed subconsciously was that the reason Richard Allen was convicted is there was no other choice.
Yeah.
Okay. The way that they did this pigeonhole or tunnel vision it's like this tunnel vision aimed right at Richard Allen. It left the jury no other choice.
No.
And so that's what happened. Even though they consciously had tried to suppress that feeling as jurors, subconsciously they're going to act from the heart. And so what happened is, as they suppressed that he's the only possible choice, they suppressed it. But that's going to move. That subconscious is a greater mover than the conscious mind. And for me, that's exactly what happened to Richard Allen from that jury.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah, as you said, because this juror more or less disregarded a lot of the evidence, except who else and the van. And now we know, okay, the van was a lie. It was a lie all along. Mm-hmm. And who else? Well, that was suppressed too. So every reason this juror had to convict was denied them as fact finders. There were a lot of other suspects.
I mean,
the
Nick,
van was a lie.
There is a such thing as exculpatory evidence. Yeah. And it's just inconceivable to me that this judge would not allow in any exculpatory evidence. I mean, when have you seen that in your life? You know, it's
before starting to stream trials about 2 years ago, I was happily. I thought I was going to stream trials with good evidence and good prosecutions. One of the first trials I covered was the Zachariah Anderson trial. And that shook me to the core. The amount of exculpatory evidence that was denied the jury. The absolute disgusting way they presented evidence. So, and from then on, the YSL trial, the Delphi trial, you now have the Karen Reed trial coming up. And a majority of the trials I've been covering is riddled with prosecutorial misconduct. And these are just the ones we see.
Yeah.
Now I heard a rumor out there that Judge Gull has an absolutely appalling overturning rate. I have not been able to confirm this. But any number above 1% is bad. And the number I've heard is 50% overturn rate.
What?
I don't think that is correct, but even if it's 5, 6, 10% overturn rate because she is so bad at her job, is unheard of. Now, I don't think it is 50%. I just haven't been able to confirm the actual numbers of her overturn rate. But if it's anything above 1%, she should never be allowed to be a judge again.
You know, I think the FBI, I saw someone mentioning the FBI. You have to understand that FBI lost Greg Ferenczi and possibly others in this entire thing. I truly do believe, maybe I'm naive in my hopes, but I think that the FBI still has an awareness of this, possibly monitoring it. Here's what I do know. The FBI is very well aware of all of the people who have been brought into this discussion. I'll say it that. I can guarantee your listeners, the FBI has a finger on the pulse of every Odinist in the state, etc. I promise you that. So if that's the case and that any of these people were involved in this, I guarantee you the FBI is watching it. And I'm just hoping that the day will come.
Because the white supremacy groups in America is already on the terrorist list. We already know that. It's been covered substantially that one of the greatest threats to the United States from internal terrorism are the white supremacy groups. A lot of them are supposedly pagan associated or use that as a cover. When it comes to Vinlanders, the Odin Brotherhood, and other select groups, I mean, when you Google Odinists and crimes, you will more or less only see Richard Allen, this trial. When I Googled it prior to the trial, there are so many terrorist acts. You have that guy up in Washington who's killed a horse in the name of Odin. And he was also charged with murder. I mean, there are so many crimes committed by diaper Nazis, pagan cover.
And you see what just happened. So I alluded to this on my community page, but I just want to add this since we're talking about this angle is I think it's very important to understand what just happened in the executive orders, particularly the one regarding cartels. Because if you read it very closely, the language in there makes it explicitly clear. It's about cartels, but it's also about anyone who's an American national citizen in the country who's working on behalf, in other words, anyone whose efforts may be traced back to the cartel's tentacles is also caught up in that. So now you have a hyper focus is going to be on shutting down the cartels who are operating the fentanyl and the methamphetamine, all the trafficking. And well, first of all, it's just a fact. If you're denying it, you're ridiculous. That it's a fact that these biker gangs run for the cartels. Okay. So if these people, these diaper Nazis, whatever you want to call them, if they are the fingers of the cartel's hand in Indiana, the heat is going to be felt because the supply is being cut off. And I bet you, as this gets closer, as this focuses in closer on shutting down that cartel economy, it's going to start. People are going to start looking that way. And the problem now is that, all right. So someone made a good point the other day. The Vinlanders come from the Hammerskins, who are outlaw affiliated. Okay, when these girls were murdered within days, you had thousands of Hell's Angels affiliated bikers run into town. And I just think
it's Mo.
Hello. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go back from my close-up, Mr. DeVille.
But one thing, I've had the thought up here. I've heard, I haven't been able to check in on it, but at the time of these Abby's and Libby's murder, there were other girls considered missing because they were out smoking weed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't checked in on it. I've just heard of it. If any of you two can fill me in on that angle.
I'm afraid I am not knowledgeable about that. I haven't dug as deep as both of you, and then with a recent flare, I've been kind of out of the loop. So I'm actually learning things as I'm listening to you guys. And as someone, and I kind of wanted to touch on just how betrayed I think everyone from Indiana feels.
Mm-hmm.
People, I had girls a couple years younger than Abby and Libby. And from that press conference, we knew nothing. And all we got in the intervening years was, trust us, we're working on it. And guys. And then the sketch that changed to Justin Timberlake with the ramen noodle haircut. So to be told all that, I mean, I legitimately, because I have 6 kids and not a lot of time until they got into school, did not know how they were killed until I started researching this. And that is such a betrayal. And it is beyond insulting to call us conspiracy theorists or things like that. Not a one of us who have different ideas about what this case means or what actual reasonable doubt means want justice any less than the people who think that Richard Allen is guilty. As I have always said, you show me the evidence that Richard Allen did it, I will be up there in my big red breeder mobile, carrying a bunch of moms with pitchforks. Like, we will be there if it is Richard Allen. But from the probable cause affidavit, where my favorite car was mentioned, the Purple Beach Cruiser, Mr. Mo, if you're listening, my birthday. And the 3 other cars. I mean, I talked to my friend who's an appellate attorney, Cara Winnicky. We actually sort of live right next to each other. So it is funny because I'm always texting her like, am I reading this right?
Yeah. I just love her. Yeah.
She is great. And since then, it has just been a travesty and an embarrassment. So I am glad that those of you guys that have more time are able to bring light to this. And hopefully by next week, I'll be able to add my own snark. But I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing and bringing this out, because there's a lot of people that have questions, and those little girls deserve answers.
I have to thank you to Slidey Pie over at Rumble for your Rumble rant. Why the hell were the prosecutors so hell-bent on charging Allen? Can I
answer in a smart-ass way first?
Yeah,
and then
go ahead. I'm already demonetized.
Oh, well, to keep McLeland and pomade, sir, you're bald, okay? The 5 strands that you have super glued to the front of your face, and I am embarrassed because I do the magical piano too, so screw you. That was mine first, ass. And I used to call you Miami Vices.
Mr. Rogers sweater, like for PR purposes exclusively. It's like, look, I'm Mr. Rogers in my office, and there's a little young girl asking me fluff questions.
I kept imagining he was going to have to explain on the Bad Touch doll what he didn't do later on, allegedly in Minecraft.
I love it when I say I'm already demonetized and Mo just goes off.
Well, then I wonder what kind of hanky panky happened after that interview, but that's a whole other. Speculate
I
on
have
that.
a vivid mental imagination. You will be getting a cease and desist for that one, sir. Oh. All right. Well,
somebody calls him Bad Ned Flanders. Other, I would call him Walmart Commissioner Gordon.
he is Randall from Recess. 90s kids, you know what I'm talking about. He was always telling Miss Finster, and Gull is Miss Finster. And he was always like, the recessors are doing something. Look at Randall and look at McClelland and tell me I'm not lying, okay?
Now, I've been promising Mo we should do a read of the transcript of the first interview with Mr. Holman. Here's the thing. Everybody's getting copyright struck.
Damn.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what if we use puppets?
I know you guys. I don't know very well to know that you know my history with the people who I call the troll farm, but it's a primary troll farm tactic that these bootlicker prosecution shills have used for 2 years going back in time now. Which is when you say or do something that is damaging to them, the very first thing they do is they weaponize the copyright strike system. They know that copyright strike system better than anyone else. And the minute you say or do something that's really touchy, they come in and boom, they'll hit you back to back with 15 accounts with the strike. And what happens to me is my streams get demonetized. So what they'll do to me when I do a spicy topic, they'll come behind it. It'll be monetized for 24 hours, but then 15 or 20 of them come and report, and then it gets demonetized so that they take my $5 of ad revenue. So, but I've learned how to not be copyright struck by just avoiding, anything that's possible.
Now I know workarounds around, because I've been not struck but copyrighted by, dozens of times. I know how to avoid it, how I should. But here's the thing: they copyright claim, you appeal, and then they wait 30 days, and then it goes away. Yeah, but 30 days later, it's gone. It's still gone.
Yeah.
So they know exactly what, and it's the same people over at X using. It's a handful of people using 10 accounts each. It's the same thing.
And you know what, Nick? I just saw yesterday that they're doing it over in Delphi Docs on Reddit.
Yeah.
So
I saw it as well. They copyrighted Reddit.
God, like, what are you afraid of?
Yeah. If you are so certain of Mr. Allen's guilt and this YouTube streamer being the second coming of Jesus, what are you afraid of? And I will tell you what you're afraid of. Us.
Truth. Being told.
You're afraid of truth. You're afraid of... The same reason why nobody in Delphi, Indiana, when I went there, me and Mo actually went to Delphi, Indiana, and I stayed back for a number of hours.
I yelled at a cop, so I left.
Yeah, she yelled at a cop. I stayed behind in Delphi, Indiana. This guy, 6'4", close to 300 pounds, actually looked like a Viking. Nobody approached me. Not one. Why? Because you're fucking cowards. You hide behind anonymity. No, it's your right to be the anonymous on X and creating accounts on YouTube and everything. But seriously, I'm a cripple. There's nothing. I literally can't run.
We're both crippled, and I let him off trail on the Delphi Trail. In my defense, I told him not to follow me. I'm reincarnated, the leader of the Donner Party. And I did tell him all of these things prior to him following me down said trail. So
yeah, we went that trail that leads to the Monon High Bridge, and we discussed it. Oh, maybe the actual trail is not this nice paved one, but this side route. Yeah, so two cripples walk down a raccoon trail, and it was interesting. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, we both had the streams on our channels. You can go back and watch us.
I did have a question for the professor. If you've been out in the Delphi area and you've been to, if not the scene of the crime, I'm sorry, I've just been introduced to you today, so I haven't binge watched all your stuff, which I probably will.
Thank you.
What is your opinion about how the noise carried? One thing that struck me so profoundly, again, and I, as a mom, was the absolute heartbreak I felt for those girls, because you can hear the sounds from the freeway. You can hear the sounds of other people walking. And if they truly were there when so close to safety, so close to where they could have called for help, and no one could, that broke my heart. And I just don't see this being a first crime scene. It's such a high risk area to take two girls to keep control. None of this makes sense.
I'm so glad you said you've asked me, because yes, I have visited, and luckily I visited after already a couple years deeply studying this. So when I went, I had specific questions I was trying to answer. And so beyond the meta level of just taking it all in, there were certain questions I had that I went and I nosed around about. And so the first, I guess, so in the general vibe for me was walking out there, I thought, absolutely no way. Okay, now I'm not talking about Richard Allen. I'm not talking about Ron Logan. I'm saying anyone. Lone wolf killer, predating on these two little girls. Absolutely no way it would happen, because I made sure to go out there at noon to 4, so I'm in that window. And when I'm out there, I'm thinking, it's wide open. It's broad daylight. There are other people out there. There's some walking to exercise. There's a couple guys with dogs walking their dogs. There's a lady with a little kid, so I'm out there and I'm thinking, no, absolutely no way. I don't care, because the way it's formed and it snakes, you don't know who's coming around that corner.
That's always been my question. That is such a high risk move. It's don't know unless you have a lookout at either end. Again, but it also, the noise is carrying. It never made sense to me that he
You're
got
right.
them through the river and then back. And that's an easy check. You just check to see if the local diatoms in that particular creek are present on the clothes. It's not, something that's fancy.
I bet it was.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
And we went there in August. We heard people, we heard traffic. Imagine in February, there's no leaves anywhere. Every sound travels.
And Abby and Libby were about my shade. Now, I'm going to tell you, if I stand out in the middle of the dark on a dark night, my husband can still pretty much see me.
Well, and even if the flashlight, see, we have witnesses. There are witnesses who are not known about, who attest to the fact that you've heard the rumor before, it was lit up like a Christmas tree or football field or whatever.
Yes.
Well, we know now that's absolutely correct, because there are very important witnesses who were very high authorities in the county who have attested that, yes, it was lit up like a football field and there were flashlights everywhere. All it takes with a white body like that is a flashlight to pass, and
it catches your eye, especially against the dark foliage.
But I guess what I wanted to make sure to touch on before we move on is the crime scene is so where they were is not as isolated as your general YouTube viewer would assume. Because if you look at it on YouTube, you see trees and it looks like it's way off in the woods, but you go and place yourself there, it's literally right in a backyard. Okay, so Yeah, you go through a little wooded area that's just a little wooded area, and then boom, you're in the backyard.
It's 50 yards from Logan's back door.
Yeah, and it's very near the water. So I got to say, it's loud out there in general when you're out there just on the trail. But when you're anywhere near that water, it's even louder because, as you all know, the water reflects the sound in a way or carries the sound. And what I noticed out there is I heard everything. I was out there and I was like, wow. So it's broad daylight. It's wide open. You hear every sound. And the only thing I can imagine, guys, is that these girls were abducted. You know, with the way I look at it, the girls were taken, probably in a vehicle, brought somewhere else. I have my ideas of where that is, but I believe they were brought somewhere else because any sound, those girls scream, anyone else screams, they're yelling, like it would have been so obvious something was happening. Even the neighbors would have heard. So those girls were taken, and I'm pretty sure that they were brought back before sunrise. And that's the only logical conclusion you can come to. Yeah. And I would advise anyone, I suggest anyone interested, go over and visit. Don't trespass around Logan's.
Yeah. And you also have that trail camera who had a pointing at the crime scene and the shade or whatever. So we now know it was a person who was looking for the girls. Some 20 yards in front of it, looking directly at the crime scene.
While everyone else had flashlights.
Yeah, there's no way for the girls to not be seen. I mean, it's physically impossible if they were there or from 2:32 until lunchtime the day after. And that is also something in contention. When were they actually found? I've heard the official is lunchtime around noon, but I've also heard somebody reporting seeing something at 10 a.m.
Yes, me too.
And
one of the searchers.
Yeah. So why is that so important to get it from 10 a.m. to noon, where officially a cop saw them? Why is that so important? Well,
and isn't it odd that it was family? So when you look at the relations, it was family that found those girls.
Yeah,
it was relation to the victim's family, and there's just, I don't know what it gets. You know, I see 4 Pittses here, and what gets me about this, I've talked to so many locals who were hands-on this situation before, during, and after. And what's clear, this community loves making a fairy tale about their society, their community, their families, and these victims. And it's just time for it to end. It's time for it to end. Like, clearly, these people, there are so many criminals. There's drug dealers. There's drug cooks. These girls were in the midst of a huge problem. They were not angels, but they were children. And the family was not perfect, that it was family. There's a whole lot of this fantasy that has to be wiped away. And we have to look at them as human beings and people who have complicated histories.
And had that been done from the beginning, Indiana is not, okay, stay away from Geist, Carmel, and, Fishers. We're not highfalutin people. We are dealing with the fentanyl epidemic just as much as any other Midwestern, manufacturing sort of crossroads. So had it been presented that these families, I don't think anyone would have withheld mercy or grace for these families, but we have to have an actual understanding of what we're dealing with. And I think it's kind of presumptuous to think that we would judge them. Again, this is not an uncommon sort of trope in rural Midwest. This is not something I don't see in my own small Midwestern town. So this is just.
I mean, it's sort of this fantasy, like a lot of Christians have it, and that's the problem that see, I'm a Christian, but I've matured to a point where I don't cast judgment in that way. But I think that a lot of these people live in a way where they cast judgment, so they have to project perfection. And I have to say, I don't expect perfection out of these families and victims. I expect human beings caught up in some kind of situation. So let's talk openly about it. But it's just been infuriating from the beginning. There's this illusion or this veil of we have to put this gloss over everything. You know, this glamour photo. Remember the glamour portrait photos back in the 90s? You know, we have to put these glamour shot filters over families, and it's just not the way it is.
Yeah, and I mean, the families might not be perfect. I mean, no family is perfect. Ask Mo. Ask me. I mean,
me.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, and I got it thrown in my face. But I'm not a young person. I was an adult before the Berlin Wall fell. My part of Sweden is the epicenter of Swedish Nazi culture.
Mm-hmm.
The kids of World War II, active Nazis, I went to school with. So I know about actual Nazi. That is why I call these people diaper Nazis, because they have no idea what they're doing. But I also know about this culture, this cult-like culture that derives from that, because I grew up seeing it. And thanks to my dad, I wasn't caught up in it, because he was an extremely strong, he is an extremely strong human being. But I grew up watching it. I could easily be caught up in it, but thanks to my dad, I wasn't alive during World War II. I'm saying the kids of the active Nazis in World War II, those were the kids I grew up along or beside, or whatever you call it. And no matter what you hear from another streamer, no, I did not run with Nazi crowds. That is so stupid.
Well, why would you be speaking out against diaper Nazis if you ran with Nazis? I mean, they will say anything to discredit.
But that's a person who has his own channel and he can't get views, so he tried. Whatever. But that's the people I grew up along. Not, I now know that grew up with means something else in the United States than over here. So I have to say grew up along, which apparently is a better phrasing. So I've seen this firsthand, these diaper Nazis with Elon Musk hand gesture, but real gestures. I've seen all of that. And I've seen them go from actual Nazis to trying to veil themselves in the pagan culture. I've seen all that firsthand.
It's an interesting rebrand.
Yeah.
And it does take, I'm not trying to give praise, but to follow the zeitgeist of, and being able to kind of latch onto that to rebrand, they're not as dumb as they appear. Which, as the fact that they are genetic dead end links with the possible being product of cousin marriage, I mean, it is helpful. And just doggone it, you're trying.
Yeah, but I was having a trail of thought here, but I am a few shots in and a few vodka tonics in. Oh. Aslan sa, keep up the good work for Norwegian Viking Mid-Ausland. Yeah. Norwegian Vikings, those were the crazy ones, just so you know. The Danish Vikings went west, Swedish Vikings went east, and then all the berserkers and crazy people we sent to Norway. Oh, look at that. It's your first super on the live stream. Thank you for the privilege. Thank you so much. Thank you for choosing me as this. Now, the trail of thought I had, Now, there's no secret that there are white supremacy groups in the prison system. Usually, they are the inmates. But it seems like Indiana, they are the guards. And we have something very, very interesting. One of the witnesses in the trial against Richard Allen was one of the guards. And that is one of the guards with "In Odin We Trust" patch on his uniform. Not the guy who tattooed Odin's spear when he wasn't allowed anymore. Another guy. What are the odds of, when we know all about the Odinist theory regarding the killings of the girls, what are the odds that 2 or more active Odinists are selected to guard Richard Allen and provide the notes of the confessions?
No coincidence. No coincidence.
I see nothing. I see nothing, Your Honor, nothing.
I mean, seriously, folks, at what point does it stop being a conspiracy theory and just being a theory? For me, that was a long time ago.
Does Alex Jones have to say it for the thing to be real? I mean, in the cycle of the internet?
Well, and look at the number of prison guards around the U.S. who have been busted for facilitating the trafficking of all sorts of whatevers in and out of the prisons. It almost as if there's really no fine line, it's. I look at it as, if the majority of the white inmates become neo-Nazis, and so do the prison guards, because they're like 24/7, they're together with the rare trip home to take a nap. It's really disturbing. It's really disturbing. And then the way I've always looked at this Delphi is, then they come out of society. I mean, they come out of the prison into society, and they have to put on this mask of something socially acceptable, which becomes Odinism or Viking or, a biker gang. But at the root, you take that mask off, they're from that group in prison, and they're still besties with those people. And so are some of the guards. And I think that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no coincidence that exclusively Odinists were put on Mr. Allen's detail as looking after him. And again, all of those interactions between the guards and Mr. Allen is gone. Magically, there's no sound all of a sudden. I mean, what did they feed him?
We have to take a lot of word for it in this case, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of, trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro.
Yeah.
He's guilty.
And then you have this interesting nexus with the Odinist report and who killed the author of the Odinist report, by a former correctionals officer who was an Odinist.
How did no one pick this up? Why was Vinnie Politain so doggone blown away by this? How do you not look? I am a mom of 6 who barely has enough time to brush my teeth in solitary confinement, and yet I was able to do this on the lam for my children for 5 seconds.
Because it's a well-guarded secret. I'll just go out and say obvious, like these people are liars. It's a well-guarded secret that he was affiliated to those people. But what they have done is they've tried to discount that or hide that fact to make it about a sexual affair. But how many times does this have to keep happening?
Yeah.
I'm looking towards the feds, and I'm saying, look, feds, we're waiting. Now would be a good time.
Yeah. The feds, now is a good time to reveal what you actually know about this case. It's way past the time They killed one of yours. Why the silence? I don't often go political. I really don't enjoy going political. But President Trump, please look this way as well. Release what the FBI knows.
The FBI has a vested interest, in my opinion, and there's no way that they're not aware, you know. And so who knows why, but it's unbelievable to me. It really is that like I'm looking towards, so all of you, are you all aware that there has been a new state police superintendent appointed to replace Doug Carter with the changing of the guard?
No, I was not aware of that. But
His name is
I'll write
Anthony
that down.
Scott. And I'm looking towards Anthony Scott and Mike Braun, the governor, and I'm looking at them, and I've already written them, and I'm saying, look, you're fresh, you're new to this. Probably time to look at the Indiana State Police and the Delphi murders.
Yeah. And
surely they would want to clean this mess up. Like Doug Carter and the state police have created a very dirty mess for Indiana, and I think they should clean it up.
Even if it's just to rub it in our face that we're all conspiracy theorists, that they had all their, I's dotted, all the T's crossed, and, they can put it against any judge other than Gull and prove the same thing.
Put our concerns to rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. I want Mike Braun, Anthony Scott, and the new blood in the system to clean this all up and alleviate everyone's concerns here.
Now, as a side note, I recollect now former police chief Lamar. He was appointed not that long ago. Then all of a sudden he shows up in a trial with a fake recollection of events. And then all of a sudden he's relieved. Why? Why would the DA's office in Carroll County put Mr. Lamar on the stand knowing he would lie? Is this connected? I don't know. What I do know is that he was an outsider. Again, Carroll County does not like outsiders. What was he looking into? Just as a side note, because they made a big public thing about, Mr. Lamar does no longer have our confidence because he lied. You knew that. If you could have dismissed the case.
Well, that's the thing with, back to this motion to correct error, which I was so pleased with. That's the huge thing about Brad Weber. Yeah. It's like you knew that was inaccurate. And I think not just him, I think Gray Hughes knew and Monica Walla knew. They all knew that was inaccurate, and they all let it happen.
Yeah.
And
GH, I prefer to say GH, he allegedly is the one who 6 months before trial mentioned the van in a live stream. How did he know that?
Monica
Who is feeding JH that information? Because
that was my other problem with Nick McClelland's.
And why is that stream gone? Why was it private?
Don't worry, it's been saved. But my whole problem with McClelland's whiny interview, it was similar. It's that you yourself and Judge Gull's assistant were directly feeding information to YouTubers, and you're complaining about YouTubers, and you're complaining about the defense talking to YouTubers, which they have every right to do.
Yeah.
Like you were giving information directly from the judge and the state to YouTubers, which is against the rules of professional conduct.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, if you give information directly to YouTubers from the judge and from the prosecutor, you should have a pretty much a clear assumption that information is going to be pipeline through their platforms.
Yeah.
But we're not supposed to question that.
Gag order only applied to no. Gag order is for all parties, but mainly it is directed to the defense because the prosecution has already all the information out there. Now, one thing, because I showed it. Oh, please don't say I didn't remove. Oh, crap. One thing that is really interesting. Let's go through history here. Dun, dun, dun. Where is it? Where is it? Darn it, I had it up here. Not that long ago. Well, I showed it earlier. Yeah, I can't find it right now because reasons. This, you have Bridge Guy, you have Ron Logan. Then they did, this forensic artist did that sequencing where it is uncanny how alike Bridge Guy is with the appearance of Ron Logan. But what my interest is here is the dog, because we know through reporting and from the trial that the girls had animal hair on them. Also, one thing, because we know Ron Logan went nowhere without his dog. Why wasn't that tested? Well, we can imagine, but why wasn't that tested? Why wasn't the animal hair tested to determine what kind of animal? Anybody?
Why were the taxpayers paid or charged, in the multiple tens of thousands of dollars for DNA testing, and DNA wrapped around one of the victim's fingers?
Yeah, was done just before trial, and it was determined to be the sisters.
They didn't want to know the answer to that one. Yeah.
No, that's exactly it, because prior to trial, they tried to not talk about it. Then it was all over the place. Then they had to test it. They didn't want to, and apparently, lucky for them, it was unrelated. Well, I know there are some theories out there about the family. I'm not going there. There's not enough for me to go there. So please avoid putting blame against family members of Abby and Libby. It's nowhere near enough. There's so big, older sister, drop them off. Allegedly, one of the girls had a sweater on that belonged to the sister. It's explainable. Don't go there. We need something. I mean, if there were a confession, like the three others we already have, okay. We are nowhere close, so don't go
Here's
there.
what we do have. None of that DNA, which was covered, those bodies were covered with DNA, both bodies. Not one drop for Richard Allen. Not on the sticks, on the bodies, on the clothing, and in his vehicle, not one iota in his vehicle. And on his clothing that supposedly matched the Bridge Guy. There's nothing. And I wonder, you mentioned the Ron Logan appearing to be similar to Bridge Guy, and I absolutely do agree with that. I've always thought that. But here's what I call into question. How can we even compare that? Because now we understand that image is interpolated to the extent that it's somewhat of a fabrication. So what I'm calling for is, where's the original? Why can we not have the raw footage from the victim's phone so that we can all take it, put it frame by frame, blow it up? Let us see it. Let the public see what did Libby capture on the phone. What's the problem with that?
Apparently, it's a big problem because there's
what was fabricated. Can we do an A/B comparison of what we were given versus what she actually documented?
And we might find ourselves in the similar situation as in the Karen Reed case. The originals are destroyed. There are no originals. We only have the altered.
Well, we better do it soon before that happens.
I don't think it's before it happens. My theory, let's just call it a theory, once they produced that original, what they showed in 2017, once they had that, the originals were gone. Because we now know already in 2017 they did that blow up of Bridge Guy.
Oh, yeah.
Once
Within
they
days.
had that,
To be honest, it was within days that they photoshopped that stuff.
yeah. And so, and despite we haven't seen the transcript of the testimony, we don't know how it was done. The same with the voice. We know it was enhanced. And for instance, I use when I stream trials, I use sound enhancers. Sound enhancers works as they remove background noise. They enhance certain aspects of the noise to make something sound better. Mm-hmm. That removes the baseline of the actual voice. That is what we're hearing on. So that cop testifying in court, I recognize Mr. Allen. Complete fabrication.
It should have never happened. I've said this before too. I think that was reckless. It was prejudicial and should have never happened. He's no expert in voice analysis. Yeah. He gave his opinion. That was willy-nilly. And once again, if you go back and read that transcript of the juror, that had a great effect on the jury. That gentleman, Brian Harshman, had a great effect on the jury. And he was the one who interpreted statements. So I had beat down on this before trial, that if you read the transcripts from Brian Harshman's original testimony before trial, the statement that there were 63 or 64 confessions is a total fabrication. There were several direct confessions of a sort that were produced, but the bulk of those were just statements that Brian Harshman interpreted as confession-like based upon his opinion. And if you go back and read his testimony, he makes it clear that there were just things that Richard Allen would say in the midst of random conversations that upon reviewing, that the thousands, he picked out, oh yeah, well there's 60 occurrences that I believe are indicating deception or confessions. So I think Brian Harshman was combative. He was lying. He was giving opinions as fact. And because he had the uniform and the haircut and the posture, those jurors took him as a serious professional law enforcement officer giving a professional, serious law enforcement opinion. And that was reckless. I'm not doing that on my channel, criticizing him.
Yeah. Now, I want to address what Rambo Bambo says. They played the original court. They didn't. What happens when they recorded this recording that was on the phone? That's the original. They extracted that to a format that allowed the court to play it to the jury. So that is 2 steps removed. So it was not the original. It wasn't even a copy of the original. It was a rendition that was that they could play in court. We to this day do not know what the original looks like. Because the original is when you play it directly from the phone. That's the original. Everything else is a copy or a rendition. So we don't to this day know what the original actually looked like.
It strains the bounds of credulity that in a small town like Delphi, where the jail unified command were right there, CVS is right there, Richard Allen is going to be a person you would interact with in a small town. No one came forward saying, you know, that Richard Allen guy, doesn't he look sort of like, I mean, you're not telling me that enough crime-obsessed people didn't have every single one of their male friends say, hey, guys, down the bridge? Because I would have before I let my girls near any of, if I lived in Delphi.
You're right. And I find it hard to believe that none of those witnesses out there ever went in that CVS and saw Richard Allen and said, hey, that's the guy that I saw that day.
Yeah.
The only out of 14,000, now I've heard there were over 50,000, but out of those 14,000, the only thing that was Richard Allen phoning in. That's the only one, is him calling in and saying, hey, I was there roughly at this time. That's the only thing. And me and Mo went there, two cripples. We walk from end of town to the other end of town in less than 10 minutes. Two cripples. For a normal function person, it takes you 5 minutes to walk end to end of that town. And CBS is on the outskirts. But everybody went there in the past 5 years up until the arrest. I don't think probably every adult person in Delphi, Indiana, went there, and not one of them.
Sarah Karma, Betsy Blair, Rayleigh Voorhees.
Yeah,
you're not telling me. You're not telling me no one in that town. I mean, you had to live, breathe this case if you were in Indiana almost, and in Delphi of all places. No one's going in there, and these posters were everywhere. You're telling me no one had, was putting things on? Not one person? It just make it make sense, because it doesn't.
Yeah, and I'm going back. What are the actual evidence that Bridge guy is the killer?
That's my question. Yeah. There's
All
no
we know
evidence
is
that the voice and the image are the same individual. There's actually more logic would dictate that they're not the same individual.
Yeah,
So it's
because the audio is separate from the video.
insane. It's absolute insanity, this entire case.
So for whatever reason, that Bridge guy might have started the girls at one point when they were, and then he just kept walking.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't. There's zero evidence that the guy in that video is the killer.
Show me Abby's DNA on Richard Allen's clothing, or show me a knife that contains a spot of Libby's blood in Richard Allen's closet. That's what I'm looking for. Or show me a video from a trail camera of Richard Allen leaving the crime scene bloody. All of these hearsay and allusions to his guilt, but the fact that could result in a conviction is astounding. It should frighten the shit out of everyone who's in the audience. It frightens me.
Yeah, and folks, the only reason Richard Allen was even on the map was that he was a good Samaritan. The sheriff asked people, please phone in and tell us what you saw that day, where you were that day. He did the good Samaritan thing. He phoned in, said, I was there roughly this time. I didn't see anything of notice. Folks, I will say this, not as a legal advice, but if you even vaguely resemble some person of interest, do not call anyone.
Mm-mm.
Because look at Richard Allen. He was a good Samaritan. And now he's in prison for the rest of his life, unless an appellate court says this is bogus. Judge Gull, go screw yourself. This isn't how we do it in the state. Okay, we are 3.5 hours in. I think we have gone through everything we can at this, because this motion of correct errors is just the first. There will be more.
Oh yeah.
There will be more. We are barely at the tip of the iceberg here. And all of this shows us Mo started looking at this before me. I started covering this before I started covering the YSL trial. A lot of what I see here is stuff I might have known, but not in this context, and other things I have never seen before. And my worst fears, my theories, which I at some point thought this is out of line, I wasn't even close to the actual truth. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. And with that, Professor, thank you so much for being here. Now, what do you have in your pipeline going forward?
Well, it's just a prof. I hate to really say too much, but I am looking very closely. Okay, and hey, if you were one of those people out there that day and a witness, you should be prepared for scrutiny, because what I am hyper focused on right now are all the people that can be placed out there that day and within the 24 hours bookending it, before and after. And that includes all of the witnesses, some of the family, and all of the searchers. So if you were in any way a witness to this or involved in some way in this time and place, there will be scrutiny. So that's what I'm aiming at is what open source information that can be discussed exist from this group of people who are many. They're many. So I'm heading in that direction, and I just want to say as a closing statement to your viewers is that I would love nothing more than Richard Allen to be the solution to this problem. But the fact is, I wonder when I look at the people who are so bloodthirsty and advocating that he's a killer, and all of you are covering for a baby killer. I wonder, how can you be so convinced? Because in my view, I've seen zero. The only thing that's ever been provided that I would term a piece of evidence is the bullet. Okay. But for me, the bullet is junk science. When I look at that science, and I am a shooter, you guys may not know me well, but I own several guns and I shoot them. I know how guns work. I know that there's absolutely no way on earth that an extracted round that you manually extract before it's being fired, I know there's no way on earth that you would have to fire a round to put marks on it that match an extracted round. That's not the way guns function.
Yeah.
And so
I agree, because if she couldn't get the marks by doing the same motion, then it's not a match.
Bottom line, period.
Yeah. That is when the testing should have stopped.
What's the explanation for that bullet? I can't, hey, I'm not here to give you answers. I can't tell you what the explanation is for that round, but I can tell you this. That's the only piece of evidence that he was even in any way near that crime scene. And I have to discount it because it's not proper evidence. So that leaves zero. And with zero evidence, how can you be convinced beyond a doubt yourself that he was involved in this? And so for me, that's my challenge to the naysayers is, look, I understand you want justice. When I found out there had been an arrest for Delphi, I've told this story before, I literally jumped out of my bed. I was elated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Until I read that PCA, and then I discussed it with several individuals who are experts in law enforcement. And I said, uh-oh. And that began this journey that I've been on to understand, like, So I had to come back from elation to where I am now, which is skepticism. So,
Thank you, Mo. What do you have coming up?
Well, Legal Shenanigans Theater tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you like Mystery Science Theater, true crime, and, well, making fun of Letitia Stalk, then that's what we do there. So we aren't like the other interrogation channels. We're not going to tell you about body languageology. We're basically going to make fun of people, but also point out that Letitia's story, like this case, has, well, makes the acolyte look like Shakespearean writing.
Now, I have to include, Mo has a morning show, a midday show, and an evening show where she finds news I didn't know existed. And she's starting to get a proper audience. She needs a much larger audience because it is hilarious. Absolutely
Mornings with
hilarious.
Mo at 8. So I try to time it so you can still watch trials. So I get in before trial gets in. But I give you headlines, not a lot of political stuff, no Mesopotamia, and all of the absurdity that the internet can provide. And 2025 is going to be a banner year, folks.
Yeah. And for me, tomorrow at 7 p.m., I am having an interview with Zachary Young's attorney in the CNN billion-dollar defamation trial, which CNN settled for an undisclosed amount of millions. We don't know how much, but that, if you ever wondered what is going on behind the scenes at CNN, go watch the videos of the depositions of the different individuals. If you think it was bad,
cry.
If you think it was bad, it's worse. It's much, much worse. And I have the privilege of an exclusive interview with Zachary Young's attorney tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is what I have going forward. And everybody, thank you to the professor, thank you to Mo, and to all of you out there. As I always say in the end of my streams, hug your family. Unless your family's crap, then screw them and give your love to the people who deserve it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Until the next stream or video from any of my guests, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Against the void, grasp the twisted threads of truth, laughing in the face of chaos, burning knowledge like a ruthless youth. Complex thoughts dance in the fire, cynics grin with a wisecrack dire, fighting shadows with sharpened wits, baring teeth in a world unfit. Wrath the one with biting charm, heart and brain a lethal arm, stand unshaken, minds collide, laughing with the storm inside. Wrath the one with biting charm, heart and brain a lethal arm, stand unshaken, minds collide, laughing with the storm inside. Faces enemies with a yes, every laugh a cunning test, counting past through blackened skies, inside clear and bloodshot eyes. In the maze of thoughts ensnare, every joke a blade prepared, cuts through lies with humor's flair, unseen wisdom still